Hello, and once again, a very warm welcome to NEOM here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the grand final of the 2024 World Aquatics Open Water Swimming World Cup Series. In just a few minutes, we will see the very best open water swimmers in the world take to the water in this iconic destination. My name is Will Rollo, joined today by Alice Steering, and we have seen this venue put on an incredible show. This is, of course, the culmination of the NEOM Beach Games, and NEOM has set an incredible scene for us to follow. We will see the athletes do their very best in this destination, and I'm sure add to the legacy that the NEOM Beach Games has provided. For now, we will see much more of what NEOM can provide to the world. A special place for special performances, and I'm sure the men's 10 kilometers will deliver once again. The scene has been set. The grand finale is upon us. Who will be crowned the 2024 champion, and who will take away the gold for this event here in NEOM? It has been a fantastic year, which started all the way back in Sharm Bay, Egypt, earlier in 2024. Let's have a look back at some of the highlights where we saw Sharm Bay show just how strong our athletes are. A great race in some trying conditions. It was a great battle, but Paltrinieri on top with an Italian sweep. We then went to the home of Italy, Golfo Aranci, once again a beautiful destination. Ultimately, Marc-Antoine Olivier on top. A big break as we went to Paris Olympics, but back in action in Setúbal, Portugal, where it was a trying race. Ultimately, Marcelo Guidi on top with a top three, once again going to Italy. Hong Kong, China back on the map for 2024. What a race it was. Ultimately, two swimmers battling through the finish, a tumultuous finish it was, with ultimately none other than Dario Varani on top. That leads us to here, NEOM Beach Games, the final stop for the World Aquatics Series in 2024. And Alice, what a race we have in store for us.
Yeah, this is really exciting, as we were just talking about before the break. There is a lot to race for. It's very competitive amongst the athletes, and there's so much to get into. Like, I can't get over the Italian dominance that we're seeing in the men's at the moment.
Let's hear from the athletes now as we get ready to race.
I'm very happy to be here because it's the last competition of the year. For now, I'm first at the overall classement, so now I need to keep my position or try to do my best.
Will be a strange race because it's the last, so everyone watch the people that stay in front of the ranking. So we have a lot of pressure, more than the other race, so we will see. It will be a fight for the title, so I'm very excited and I want to compete and to do a good race.
Right now I'm a bit less trained than the Olympics, of course, so it's gonna be a challenge to be on the front and make a good race, but I will try to do my best, of course. As knowing the athletes who is coming, I think it's gonna be a quite fast race, so I think we're gonna push it from the start. So that swimmer who can save the most energy with a big pace till the end, that's gonna win. I expect Marc-Antoine from France and the Italians and maybe the Germans to be in the top. So I think it's gonna be one of the best season final ever.
Of course, if I will win, I will be very, very happy. But I don't want to think about this, so we will see after the race. I think about this.
For me, it's very important because I don't swim very good at the Olympic Games, my country. So it's like my second chance to win a very important competition. So I try to do my best.
So some great insight from our incredible athletes, and you can see just how much it means to some of them to perform here the final stage on the screen now. We see that starting list, and even just off the top, Marc-Antoine Olivier, Christoph Rozovsky, to name a few. Alice, we are in for an absolute show.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like Christoph's like coming for our jobs here a little bit. That was such a good insight from him in his interview, and it's always nice to see awareness of the athletes of, yeah, I'm not there at the moment, but he's still getting in and racing, and you know, he's still going to be very competitive. Like, he's playing himself down a bit, but he's definitely going to be punching for like at least into the top 10. I think, you know, he's just such a phenomenal athlete, as are a lot of the other men. So we have a lot of great competitors out on the field today.
And we're about to meet them here, the 10-kilometer individual men, the final individual race for the 2024 World Aquatics Open Water Swimming World Cup Series. 35 athletes set to compete. We have 15 separate federations ready to race. We'll kick things off with none other than Matej Kozubek of the Czech Republic. And Kozubek looms large after what has been a big year for him.
Yeah, certainly. You know, we've seen him race strong and competitively across the field at the moment, and you know, as we spoke about before, there's always a fun part getting this moment as an athlete. I think, you know, with open water swimming, the nature of it, you know, you're in the water the whole time you swim away. It can be challenging for spectators to view it in a fun way sometimes. So these moments are really important. It's great to see such a great setup from the NEOM Beach Games, giving our athletes these opportunities.
And we saw it in the women's race, but the overall series points trophy sitting to the left of the screen there as a reminder for these athletes what they're all doing it for. Just how special would that be to walk past, Alice?
Yeah, it's really cool. I think that's a really lovely touch. Like, just like, I mean, for Marc-Antoine, for Greedy, and for all of these guys at the top, they know what they're competing for. But seeing it there just adds that little bit of like fairy dust, that gold dust on it to, you know, like cement in. Like, come on, like lock in. This is what you're here for.
Yeah, it is a long season, especially in an Olympic year. It feels like a lifetime ago we were racing in Egypt, but ultimately it is the final moment here in NEOM Beach Games, which we will be crowning our overall champion. What a show NEOM and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have put on for us throughout not only the Open Water Championships, but throughout all competitions here, kicking off in early November with the Super Tri. This will be the final race of the champs, and I'm sure we'll be looking forward to hopefully being back in 2025. You can see more athletes being introduced, and the Italians strongly represented once again today.
The Italian men is, and the women as well, of course, but the men, it's just something else. You know, seeing that Setchable 1, 2, 3, just always so dominant, and then of course the finish in Hong Kong as well with the first and second. I'm expecting to see much of the same again today a little bit. I'm grown to expect that from the Italian men, that, you know, when you defeat one, there's another one that will appear.
Yeah, that's always the way we've seen it fight out on the world level. Here is one of those strong Italians in Mario Sanzullo. He's had a massive year, always competing near the front. As we've talked about, there are some big names competing today. The first time we've seen Florian Walbrock since the Paris Olympics. I wonder what sort of form he brings to the competition, as well as the next athlete out, Sachavelli. It's been a big year for the junior Frenchman.
Oh, certainly. You know, he's put in some amazing racing at the World Junior Championships. Saw him take away the 10k gold, and also I think he finished second in the 3k knockout as well as winning the relay, I believe. So had some great racing there. I just can't believe he's still a junior. That's what kept blowing my mind a little bit, because he just seems so seasoned on the senior racing circuit. So a fantastic racer.
Yeah, I'm sure he will be looking to continue to continue to solidate his position as one of those on the rise. We've seen him compete intently throughout this season, and I know he'll be working alongside Marc-Antoine Olivier to get the best possible outcome for France as well. And of course, we get to see them compete tomorrow in the relay. Moving through the field now, the top 7 athletes. Here is our junior title winner in Matthias Malechi, a massive achievement at such a young age.
Yes, definitely. Now, as we've been saying, it's just great. This is it's something that World Aquatics have put on. They've recognised that a lot of the juniors race these races, that you don't get much recognition for it because it's so tough, it's so competitive, and you need to keep spirits high. You know, you need to give you need to celebrate the juniors that are racing. So fantastic to see Brazil take home both the men's, the girls and the boys junior racing titles.
There was Dario Varani, the winner in Hong Kong. Up next, none other than Tokyo Olympic champion 2019 and 2023 world champion Florian Wellbrock. This is a course suited for him. Up next, we have the Olympic champion from this year, Krzysztof Rozowski, world champion as well. Very few can say that in the same year. But last out and walking with absolute swagger. Number 1 next to his name, our current tour leader, Olympic and world medalist, Marc-Antoine Olivier. How is that for a final 7 athletes introduced? There is some superstars set to race here.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what's so fun about these races. And Marc-Antoine seems to know where all the cameras are. I love that. And I always like when athletes come out with excitement, with enjoyment. You know, he just looks like he's excited to race. And much can be said from the same can be said for many of the other athletes as well. It's always really fun. And good luck to them. It's looking like it's going to be a good race.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see it play out in great fashion. A reminder once again that this is a 6-lap course, 1.66 kilometers each lap, which will ultimately lead to a 10-kilometer race. We see the dimensions of the course being shown on screen. The sprint laps will be completed at the end of lap 1, 3, and 5, ultimately crowning the champion of the sprint title, junior title, and overall champion for 2024. On screen currently, the man to beat, Marc-Antoine Olivier, carrying that number 1 with the weight it deserves, Alice.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I'm just looking across Marc-Antoine's results, and his consistency is just so impressive, you know. Fourth in Egypt, first in Golfo Oranchi, 4th in Portugal, and 3rd in Hong Kong. It's just so impressive.
That's what we're fighting for. The final time in 2024. We get ready to race here in NEOM. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has shone a bright light on our sport. Who will react? We will find out in under 2 hours' time. Olympic champions, World Cup medalists, and superstars on the start line and underway for the final time in 2024. What a way to start. Whitewater across the field, a great shot, and this is as good as open water swimming gets, Alice.
Yeah, and you know what I love at the start there? There were a few swimmers that held back and then ran behind where Marc-Antoine and Rozowski started and dived in after them. And I just love that. I love that foresight, that thought that like, okay, you know that these are two very good swimmers. If one of them doesn't do well, the other one will be there. Like you're putting your eggs in the right basket there, basically. I just think it's very sensible, especially if you're looking to race those kind of tactics where you're not wanting to lead.
It is such a tactical race, and we heard after the women's race, of course, with Moesha Johnson on top, just how important using the conditions to your advantage became, especially as the conditions deteriorated throughout the morning. I expect we'll see much more of the same. As you can see, Marc-Antoine Olivier at the left-hand side of your screen, sort of leading that pack coming across the field now. I expect to see Mark really push the pace early. We know he's chasing those sprint point title. But I guess, Alice, how do you see it playing out?
I really don't know, because the men have been so dynamic in their placing. Like I was saying about Marc-Antoine, like he's won one this year in Golf Ranchi, and the rest of it he's just been consistently top 4. So that's what has been able to put him at the top, and it's just consistent, strong racing that opens up these opportunities for you to be the tour leader. So, but then it keeps getting challenged by the Italians, and just like the amount of them that keep coming through and keeping it competitive. So, I don't want to make a call on this one. I made a call on the women's. I never know with the men. You've got Florian Wellbrock back in it. As you're saying, these race conditions are so well suited to him that it could go his way. I mean, Rozovsky's saying that he's not as fit as he was at the Olympics, but even still, you can't count him out. So I don't know. You let me know what you think, Will.
Well, as I say my prediction, the man of the moment is leading the race, and that is Florian Wellbrock. I think this is a race that is perfectly suited to the way that he races. He would have been ultimately disappointed with the way that 2024 played out. Doha and Paris weren't necessarily venues that suited his style of racing, but this certainly does. And I think he'll be looking to send a very strong message back to the rest of the world that Florian Wellbrock is one of the best swimmers, best open water swimmers as well, of all time. And he's out in front already, Alice, making me look much better than I expected.
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess that's one thing that you could bet on. If the race is flat, if Florian's in it, he's going to be at the front. It's just how he races. He's smooth. He's got this amazing stroke. You know, I always love to kind of display the difference between the best men in the sport and the best women, and just look at the stroke difference. Like much longer, much more like traditional pool swimming as we see. Whereas the women's stroke we've seen develop into higher stroke rate, a little bit shorter and sharper, which I think just suits the physiology of women better in that way, of not having to lever as much water through it. But when you have the men with the strength that they can put out, you can get swimmers like Florian who have this beautiful stroke that just seems to flow endlessly and just looks effortless as he swims. Yeah,
it's almost remiss of his parents to call him Florian, and his Instagram handle FlowSwim. I always encourage people to go and check it out. His video of him swimming in the flume is mesmerizing, and honestly makes it look unfair when he's competing against the rest of the field.
Yeah, this is one of those things where it's like he's one of the like again, he's in that burnt group. The work that they do is so challenging and so difficult, but this is one of those examples where he's talent, and I'm not taking away from the hard work he's done at all. He's done some of the hardest work I've ever heard swimmers do. You know, we're talking 100k weeks, 120k weeks, back to back, spending weeks up at altitude, really, really challenging stuff. But when you get an athlete like that who can put together that kind of training, this kind of stroke, and that mental fortitude, you end up with a really special athlete like Florian.
Yeah. And I guess coming out of what has really established itself as one of the leading programs in the world with that Coach Burned training style, we saw Moesha Johnson that trains with Coach Byrne as well take out the win earlier today. I think these athletes are ready to race here, and You know, when you've got athletes like Moesha, Sharon Van Rondahl, Florian Wellbrock, Ollie Clement, it's easy to be inspired by your teammates to push yourself harder and ultimately really be world-leading athletes.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the best training with the best. It's one of those things where like you're in an environment that allows for greatness to flourish and to develop, and it will be competitive amongst them. You know, they will be putting down challenges to each other. You know, Moesha and Sharon, they'll be driving each other along. It will be competitive. I'm sure it will be fun at the same time, though. And I love this. You know, do we see this with the men often? I
No.
mean, how's he doing backstroke that fast? What is that? That's so
That's such a flex. You're talking about some serious swimmers in there as well. Marc-Antoine Olivier taking the pace. Sasha Valley just there. Christoph Rosowski and Florian Wellbrock swimming backstroke. If that's not a clip, I don't know what is. That is...
yeah, that's another flex moment. And like, it wasn't like he did 1 or 2 strokes. He probably did like a good 20 meters of backstroke. He just still looks so smooth. He's got such a standout stroke. And you can see why the flatter water, or the smoother water, I should say, suits him, because it just allows for a stroke to glide through. And Rosowski's looking good here as well. It's good to see him at the front. You know, I don't know why he's thrown me off a little bit with him saying that he's not as fit as the Olympics, because he's still Olympic champion, which was like 3 months ago, so it's not like it's been a long amount of time, but I think where was it that was it Setchibol? He might have struggled a little bit there.
Hong Kong.
Was it Hong Kong? Sorry, thank you. Hong Kong, he struggled a little bit there, but that was a good couple of weeks ago now. Fitness can come back very quickly in swimming. It's one of those things where it feels like it's taken a while, then all of a sudden it switches on and you're ready to go, and it's great to see him up at the front here. And this is the thing with the men, like you have one swim at the front and then you're like, oh wait, but who's behind? You've got Marc-Antoine, you've got all of the Italians sat within that mix. Florian sat at the edge as well. It's so competitive.
Yeah, it's a special time to be an open water fan, because we have just this clash of generational athletes really starting to come to the forefront of open water swimming. You know, we don't have David Bethlehem racing today, and we saw the Australians step up at the recent Hong Kong World Cup, which they aren't racing in the men's race today either. You look through the field and it's so deep, and I mean, we haven't seen Domenico Azzarenza or Gregorio Palcinelli race for a number of months now, but have we noticed that Italy hasn't been at the top? Of course not, because 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th Italians are still good enough to be competing in the top 10 of the world. It's a weird and wonderful sport at the moment, and really I can't see it going anywhere anytime soon. You look at the ages of Marc-Antoine, 28 years of age, Christoph Rosowski's 27, Florian's 28. You know, the veteran of the sport is Axel Raymond, as the multiple time world champion, and he is only in his young 30s as well. It's a great time to see it play out the way it is, and it mirrors the way that we've seen the race develop in the women's.
Oh, absolutely. I just want to add real quickly, your point about Accarenza and Palcinelli not being here. I think it just shows the great opportunities that this sport has for people to race, because unfortunately, just the way that it works, at World Championships, you only have 2 per nation able to race. At the Olympic Games, you have a maximum of 2 able to race, as in you might not even be able to qualify both spaces. So for the cases of like Italy, France, Germany, where you have all these incredible swimmers who don't actually get to compete in Olympic Games, at least you still get the opportunities to go to World Cups and be competitive with those athletes and continue to try and make a name for yourself. It's not like everything stops with the Olympics not being your opportunity. We've seen with Leah Boy this year, we've seen with numerous Italian men like Ferrani, that they are able to get in and still have some great racing.
It's a great point, and I'm sure it doesn't happen overnight. It's good to see the Italian Swimming Federation continuing to back open water swimming, and as we've seen that sort of become more synonymous with the World Cup series, as we saw in the start of the race, the Brazilians really starting to back it, and Malechi, the junior champion for 2024, before this race even started, he had a great relay in Hong Kong, and ultimately Brazil came away with silver. We haven't seen them up in the medals since 2017. So when you add in Brazil, and you've got Hungary, Italy, France, Germany, Australia, USA, there are so many federations that are really pushing forward, and I guess that's why we've seen the support of that relay being introduced into World Cups and World Championships, because it makes for such great viewing.
Yes, completely. And it also stops the country from just relying on one swimmer to be good. There's a tendency for that to happen in swimming because of just the individual nature of it, that countries can just like have like a mega star swimmer, especially for the smaller countries, which is absolutely a great example to see, like Joseph Schooling from Singapore, for example, or Siobhan Haughey from Hong Kong. But it allows for those like bigger nations that really can have like the numbers of people to get involved in the sport more and be backed by their federation, get those opportunities to go and race in Saudi Arabia or Hong Kong or Portugal, which are really great opportunities for youngsters especially to gain that experience and to race for their country. So the relay has always been like, it's always such a fun part. We get to witness it tomorrow, thankfully. And as you were saying, Brazil taking home that medal in Hong Kong was fantastic to see.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be fighting hard once again. Brazil, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Portugal, and Italy B set to race tomorrow. And I'm sure there'll be fireworks in that one as we look to crown a champion for the final stage here. For now, though, Krzysztof Rozalski, you may be right there, Alice. He is leading the race. Those pre-race comments might have just been falsifying the hopes around the world. He looks in fantastic fashion right now.
Yes, yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. Yeah, off the back of Hong Kong, I guess I thought I just wasn't. It's difficult to tell what fitness people are in, right? It's a challenging time of year coming off the back of an Olympics, and you've still got so much to race for. It makes total sense to kind of shift your season now and end it at Christmas, both like culturally for a lot of us, like coming from a Western country like I do, it just makes a lot of sense to have more time off over Christmas, get to see your family. But also in terms of the way the circuit is working now, it just makes a lot more sense. So it's good to see the athletes taking this challenge on and not necessarily having to go with like the conventional swimming season, and allowing it to be kind of flexible and kind of dictated by the quality of races that are available to them throughout the year.
Well, not only the quality of races, but the quality of prize money that is on offer. We saw in the women's race, and we'll see once again in the men's, the series winner taking home $50,000. But not only that, Alice, $3,500 will go to the winner of today's race. And essentially, when you start stacking the monies available from the overall series, the sprint titles, the races individually, relays, you can really start to become more of a professional athlete, which is an opportunity that has been remiss of open water swimmers since really it becoming a mainstream sport.
Yes, completely. No, this prize money is substantial for any athlete. It really can, set up your season, set up the year, hope maybe even the next 2 or 3 years if you're smart with your money like that. And it also gives like more cause for your federation to continue supporting you. I mean, this is clear with a lot of the athletes that we will be talking about. But even for the athletes that finish in like 9th or 10th place, if funding positions are up because of your placement on the world rankings, you can point to it and say, hey, look, like I'm in 8th place, it's looking good, like I had some really strong races last season, keep backing me, keep taking me to these competitions, and like who knows where this can go. And it's great that those opportunities are there for athletes, because as dealing with Olympic sports, the money's not as there's not as much money in it as other sports that we see, like soccer or NFL or things like that. So these opportunities are really key for athletes.
Well, yeah, and to that point, the opportunity of racing here also comes from racing in general and the experience that you can get from that. And I think it's often overlooked by many young open water swimmers is if you're racing in the pool, if you race in Rome or you race in Sydney or you race in London or Paris, it's ultimately it's the same thing. It's a 50-meter indoor pool. You know what you need to do between lap to lap. Whereas when you're racing on the World Series, you are completely in a new element, and really the only thing comparable is racing in the Len Series. But even still, you miss a lot of the depth that is provided through Asia, Australia, and Americas, and I'm sure many other federations as well. So it's often tough for athletes at a young level to come in and make an impact. And you know, we see those athletes once in a generation. Really, David Bethlehem, Sasha Veli sort of come to mind, but even still, it's hard for them to make an immediate impact on the race. So for many of the federations to be able to back them on how performances are done throughout the series is pivotal to the ultimate athlete sort of success. And I have no doubt in my mind that in 5-10 years time we look at an athlete like Matheus Melechi of Brazil who will come through as one of those mainstays in the pack, and that's because of the work he's doing at the moment.
Yeah, you're totally right, and it's great that the inclusion of the juniors ranking forces a limelight onto these juniors that are working hard at lower positions in the field. Like, I've been there myself. I remember my first senior race off, and I'd literally just won European Juniors a few months earlier in the 5K. Went on to do a race in Viedma, Argentina. I think I came like third last. Anna Marcel, I believe, won that race. So it was one of those things where it was a real eye-opening moment for me that, you know, you can make a lot of mistakes as a junior in junior races, and I think that's great. That's a great way of learning the sport. But when you get to these senior races, there are no room for errors. And allowing that development for juniors to come through is so crucial. And we are seeing that. As you said, we saw it with David Bethlehem, we're seeing it with Sasha Veli, and it allows these like superstar athletes to really start to hone their craft.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alice. As we just saw there, you can see we've had a lead change. Florian Walbrock now pulling in front of Krzysztof Rosowski. That, if you're wondering from home why he did pull away and get some separation, is because an athlete like Krzysztof Rosowski is such a strong body and such a heavy body that drives through the water. If Florian pulled up alongside Krzysztof would have the opportunity to jump on his hip and sit in that wake, and it would make Florian's life a lot harder. So that's why these athletes try and pass each other with separation, and ultimately, why we see the success of these athletes moving forward. So as we see there, Walbrock leads through lap 1, Rosowski, Oliver, Veli, Guidi, and absolutely star-studded top 5, which I'm sure will break down. But more importantly, Alice, looks like Marc-Antoine Olivier, should he sort of sit forward for the rest of the race, looks like he'll be taking home that sprint title.
Yeah, he looks comfortable and happy there, to be honest. You know, I think he's enjoying Rosowski and Walbrock taking that changeover between the two of them. It's a good opportunity for Marc-Antoine to just sit in there, sit comfortable. His stroke looks nice and smooth. What I just want to point out that I noticed about Florian and Rosowski is their leg kick. There's this kind of common misconception amongst distance swimmers that it's kind of like a 2-beat leg kick, that it's like basically just to keep balance. But you can see from both of them here, Florian less so. I think he's turned it off a little bit now, but Rosowski's got a very strong leg kick, and it's nice to see that, because I was always one of those swimmers that had a strong leg kick, and it always seemed like it was the wrong thing to do. So it's just nice to have a little bit of validation, even after my retirement, that my leg kick was fine.
I'm sure you can clip that up and send it to your coach.
Yeah.
But ultimately, lap 1, pretty tight through that top 30. Some big names. Dario Varani sitting at the back. It's a familiar place for him. He is in a difficult position, of course, because at the front we have some stars of the sport. So I do expect that Dario may not feature the same that he has throughout the World Cup series, especially the races like Setúbal and Hong Kong, where we were lacking a little bit of firepower. But despite that, good to see he's sticking true to form. I guess, Alex, for those watching at home, you can see the way that the pack does sort of maneuver itself, especially on those wider drone shots. It's very interesting to see how athletes move forward. And wow, 7 across is, I mean, that's unique. But as an athlete, how do you use the pack to drive yourself forward?
Yeah, so I always saw the pack as like kind of like a ladder. So I'm sat. I would normally be sat in the middle towards the back, and when you want to move forward, you have to take it stage by stage. You can't think, okay, I'm going to swim past like 3 lines of people, because that's like 8-ish meters, and it's far. It's a lot of swimming to do when you're all swimming at a fast pace. So you have to take it stage by stage. So as you can see, some of the swimmers like bunching in together now, looking for these gaps, looking for these opportunities where a little gap has opened up in the row in front of you, and you kind of need to find that space, get your arms into that gap, and allow you to take that space and make other swimmers aware around you that you're the one taking that gap. It's always very difficult when you're in those positions. It's very bunched up. There's not a lot of space. You're having to contend with other people trying to do exactly the same thing as you, and you have to be very confident and sure in your strokes. So, this is why Rosowski and Florian are both like sitting at the front in their own respective ways, different strokes in the way they do it, but still looking to do the same thing, because they don't have to deal with any of that stress or that kind of physical and mental fatigue, which it does take out of you constantly having to assess where you are and everything. Whereas if you're sat at the front, you just think about swimming forward, and that's got its own challenges in itself, but you haven't got to worry so much about where you are in relation to everybody else.
But also swimming within that whitewash, you are swimming significantly easier than those at the front, right? If we look back to that 4th row there, the swimmer in the middle, I believe that might be Marcelo Guidi. He would be swimming about 20 to 25% easier than Christoph on the front, who's trying to break that water.
Yes, completely. This is why I always like sitting in the back. The whitewash, the waves, it kind of gets all of those bubbles that you see, that white water, it gets under you and kind of lifts you up even more, and you just kind of glide along. It's called drafting. You sit behind, you sit comfortable. It's very nice. It just makes things feel so much easier, and you don't have to worry so much about where you're going. You do have to contend with other people around you. As I've been saying, it can get quite physical, especially around turning buoys, as we're going to see in a second.
That's a great point, and this is where you have to be quite risk adverse, especially earlier on in the race. And I guess it's what's so interesting about this as well is getting those swimmers that are so well equipped at dealing with the tactics of the race. Thinking of the way it used to be swum. You look at someone like Ferry Vertman, who sat all the way at the back of the field, especially early on in the race, and then was absolute tactical master when it came to moving forward. And if you were lucky enough to sit on his feet, and I believe Alice, you have a story with Sharon van Roendel where you managed to jump forward at the right time, it can be a game-changing race, because you've conserved a lot of energy early on and able to use the pack to your advantage to move forward.
Yes, absolutely. There are just some of these swimmers that know how to dance through a pack, and it's really special when you're able to watch it and experience it. And as is with open water swimming, unfortunately we can't track individual swimmers all the time. Sharon would have, whenever she races, if you do get that opportunity to watch her, she is one of those swimmers. And yeah, speaking from a personal experience briefly, I got to do just that. I think it was maybe Doha in 2018 or 2017, something like that. And I just sat behind her for 2-3 laps of the race, and just seeing how she moved forward, and she made it feel so effortless and so easy, where she just would hop into the next place and then to the next one. And I really got a great insight into how you are able to do that as a swimmer. And it just it seems like it's magic, but it's just a confidence. Confidence is the key one, and experience in knowing where you want to be and when. and you commit to it and you do it.
And a swimmer like Krzysztof Rosowski, who currently leads the race, as we see that crosswind starting to impact this second lap. A swimmer like Krzysztof Rosowski, formerly used to swim like Ferry Vertman, sitting back in the pack, has transformed his race and now leads at the front. Why do you think he made that change?
Yeah, it's an interesting and really good point. I think it was one of those where eventually you realize like the results maybe aren't consistent enough for you, that it's leaving a little bit too much to chance. And I've always thought the best way to swim it is like, if you can cope with the physical energy of putting out, of leading, then go and do it. If you can cope with that, not all swimmers can. And it's really tough, it's really challenging. As we've been saying all season, it's racing it on hard mode. They're not swimming slow here. Like, anybody at any point of this will be swimming at a strong effort. Swimming it from the front, leading that, is challenging in the way that, yes, you get clear water, but you have to sight well. You have to be swimming fast, and you have to be well aware that everyone is behind you, which is really like challenging mentally and physically. So to see Rosowski kind of change that tactic and start to take the race on from the front, I think shows his intent of, this is what's going to make me win races back to back. And I do think, especially with the way that men's race is going, that is the case. I'm starting to see it with the women, like with Marisha Johnson. Yes, she didn't lead the race all the way through, but that turn of pace and that she was able to turn on and leave everybody behind is indicative of the fact that we're seeing races going more that way, instead of being kind of a tactical masterclass and then a sprint finish at the end.
Yeah, it's a great point, because the evolution of racing really is at the own fault of whoever's winning. So essentially, the more that Krzysztof, or say Florian, wins the way that he is winning by going to the front and making the pace hard from the very start, the more that the next generation is going to train to race like that and ultimately overcome those strengths. So I look at an athlete like Marc-Antoine Olivier, who of course has been on the scene for such a long time, but not only that, has been near the front of the race, a bronze medalist back at the 2016 Olympic Games, to be competing at the highest level and hopefully, for his sake, taking out the overall series title for 2024. You have to be so resilient, so adaptable, and that is the perfect way to describe Marc-Antoine Olivier. But ultimately, I think that the race follows the pattern of the next Olympic cycle. So if you look at the way that open water swimming was raced back in 2014 to 2016 in preparation for the Rio Olympics, swimmers like Ferry Vertman were able to sort of be at the front because the conditions were quite rough, and there was no way an athlete would be able to sort of get separation for the full 10 kilometers. You saw that transition in the lead into Tokyo Olympics, as it was quite a flat and hot course. So long, strong and lean athletes like Florian Wellbrock, who now holds the lead, were able to sort of train that way, train fast, train hard, and ultimately get extremely fit over that 10-kilometer distance. And then we saw the way they prepared for Paris, and it became who could be the strongest athlete in the field. And that's where Krzysztof took his swimming to another level. And you know, you look at all the men on the start line, and there is one juggernaut, and that is Krzysztof Rosowski. So I'm really interested to see how they set the course for the LA Olympics and what that means for both the men's and the women's evolution of open water swimming.
That's such fantastic points, actually, because I hadn't really put two and two together, but you're so right. Like, there is like different races have different metas and different ways of being swum and ultimately won. So I mean, a race like this is a great example for a style of Florian Wellbrock, who a fantastic, very fast pool swimmer, able to get in and just allow his stroke to fly. And then as you said with Paris, like that was strength endurance. Like, who can cope with the the current like pushing you back constantly, having to fight against that, like basically swimming as close to a wall as you can and being comfortable with being very uncomfortable. So you're so right about LA. I'm really curious to see how that course is set, where it will be. There's a lot of opportunity with LA. Like I've swam there myself, and there are some reservoirs. There's obviously, of course, the ocean. So I just, it would be cool to see where they end up putting it. I can't really guess right now, and I wouldn't want to make a guess because there'll be someone who knows LA much better than me making that decision.
Yeah, but I'm also sure that with the innovation that we've seen over the last couple of seasons from World Aquatics, they'll be making a very considered approach to not only what will be the best outcome for the athletes, but also for the fans and spectators around the world to see who will be crowned the next Olympic champion. And it's a salivating prospect with some of these athletes in the prime and still will be in their prime in 4 years' time, but also the next generation of stars that are coming through, which we of course saw competing this year, Alice, at Alghero for the World Junior Championships.
Yeah, just that was such an exciting competition. It was really the juniors has like a very special place in my heart, and I'm always very thankful that it is a competition that we get to see, we get to watch, get to involve ourselves in. There's some fantastic talent coming through there, and I was just thinking like I can't wait to see them really start to get those opportunities to come to the senior races, to burst onto the scene. The likes of Tsutomori from Japan, that's a fantastic racer from the America. His name's eluding me at the moment. He got Luke Ellis. That was it. So yeah, I think we saw him race. Did we see them race recently in Hong Kong? Or might be getting confused with Claire Weinstein. Apologies, but some great races coming through, certainly.
Yeah, so exciting to see open water really being embraced worldwide, of course, which is only inevitable after the introduction to the Olympics back in 2008. It's just going to continue to grow and grow, especially with the smart decision makers leading the helm at World Aquatics. And credit to them to have this broadcast around the world. It was a new initiative introduced last year, and of course I've been joined by yourself, Alice, to call the action this year, and what a year it's been to sort of share those stories that these athletes have embodied in this Olympic year in 2024, and I'm sure next year we'll see much of the same as we move back to somewhat of a normal schedule with the World Championships held next year, and then the next World Championships will not be until 2027. So a lot on the line over the next 12 months for these athletes, and Florian Walbrock wanting to re-establish himself as one of those to watch at the front.
Yeah, certainly. It's funny because you kind of got into your mind because you haven't seen Florian race to the standard that we know him race at, that that he's not there or that something's going on, but it's great to see him back on, and he's clearly out here to make a statement. Haven't seen him swim backstroke in a second, but it might be coming at any point. But yeah, the field's been quite dynamic at the moment. We're seeing, as we kind of expect with the men, and we saw it with the women as well, I suppose, different names coming through. We see Rozovsky sat a little bit further back at the moment. Marc-Antoine's, of course, sat within there as well, and of course then we see the plethora of Italians within it as well. So, as always, a competitive field.
Yeah, the big one to watch here, where is Dario Varani? Has he moved forward on this lap? Of course, he sits second overall in the title, 150 points back from Marc-Antoine Olivier. So very, very tight between the top two, as well as Marcelo Guidi, who sits in third, 492 points back from the overall title. So still within striking distance for the win. We move further back with Andrea Filadelli sitting in fourth position. Krzysztof Rozovsky back in fifth. He started the season in fantastic form, but has ever so slightly faded away from that overall win after a disappointing result in Hong Kong. But as he said, fighting back after the Olympic Games is certainly not as easy as you'd expect, and I'm sure he'll be looking to be near the podium at the end of today's race. But Andrea Filadelli sitting in second there for Italy, He looks really strong. I love watching these men swim, especially into this headwind. You can get a great sense of just how fast they're traveling.
Yeah, definitely. And we see an interesting pack formation happening at the moment. We've got the three of them in a line with Florian, Philadelphia, and then I think it's probably Marc-Antoine sat in behind that. And then there's a bit of a gap there. I mean, and this is like, I can't see it opening up much further, but if it does, this is how those moments start to kind of like race away from you when you're the rest of the field, where the pace is being driven forward constantly. And opportunities like this open up where you're not on the swimmer's feet in front of you, and then you're eventually trying to all fight for that same position, and it gets really competitive, really messy, and you end up hindering each other's progress to stay within that field. That's not happening now, but this is how that is an example of how it slowly starts to happen.
And Alice, of course, it looks very easy from where we're sitting to move around this field, where the wind definitely plays more of a factor from one way to the other. It looks like the wind is flipped from where we saw it in the women's race. They are swimming into this headwind on the back straight, the opening straight of each lap, as opposed to the back straight on the other side of the course. But essentially, when you are swimming into a headwind, it becomes ever so crucial to be swimming as straight as possible, and also swimming in, siding as often as possible, because competing with that chop can often be very difficult, and ultimately leads to what we've seen in the opening lap, and not so much the second lap, but those splits in the pack.
Water would just kind of come over and just steal her stroke a little bit and make it choppy, and that's where as an athlete you have to be able to change your stroke when it matters, and clearly Moesha was able to do that because it didn't stop her from winning. She went in and won fantastically, but yeah, those headwinds, this chop, it can be really challenging for an athlete, and you have to be dynamic with your stroke and your race.
We see them come through the end of lap 2 here. It's a bit of a battle through that feeding station. Seeing just how important it is in this race, especially to get your feeds in. Philadelphia sitting second ahead of Olivier Guidi, Veli, Rozovsky, Sanzullo, Giovannoni rounds out the top 8. So Malechi of Brazil sitting forward, which is great to see, as is Kato Shimori, the young Japanese swimmer. But Alice, just as expected, a big move there from Dario Varani, now into 13th, just 9 seconds off the lead.
Yeah, we're gonna. There's so many. We can see Axel Raymond a little bit further back as well. But there's a lot to play for here, and I'm just even looking at the sprint, the men's sprint rankings. We haven't even spoken about that. I feel like with the women's, it was much more. It was more understood where it was going, but I think the men's, it's been a little bit more relaxed because we haven't had David Bethlehem in the past couple races, where he still sat in 3rd position despite not swimming Portugal and Hong Kong. Like, he's still that high up because he was just so dominant, gaining 80 points in Egypt, 90 points in Italy. So clearly very dominant at it. We have Marc-Antoine leading that at the moment. And going into lap 1, I believe he was the highest of the ranked. We've got Guidi in 2nd. So it's looking comfortable for Marc-Antoine to potentially take that home. But, as always, we'll see how things unfold on this lap.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, it was very, very close all the way to that final lap in the women's race. We'll see how it plays out. But just to highlight, I guess, what you said there, 80 points in Soma Bay, 90 points in Golfo Oranchi for David Bethlehem. That is, you can only earn 90 points in one stop. It's sensational.
Yeah, it's been such a shame we haven't been able to see him race, especially towards this back end of the year. He's obviously taking some time off, resting. Had a fantastic year. Been so strong, so dominant, so young as well. I think he's only like 19, 20 years old. Like the future is so bright for him. It's looking really great. So it's totally understandable that he's taking some time off to recover. But would have been great to see him out here racing, because the race would be looking very different now. I'm very confident he would have been up at the front, driving that pace forward, making everybody work harder than they probably want to. But at the moment, we see Florian stroking it out as he has done for the past for the other 2 laps too.
Yeah, it must, and I guess you can sort of talk to your experience on this, Alice, but it must be such a deep sigh of relief for the field when they realise that David Bethlehem isn't going to be racing, and the first 6Ks of the race might be at least bearable.
Yeah. I always thought that about the Australians in the women's racing. You know, with like Chelsea Cabrera, Karina Lee, that's it. And Karina Lee, they would often be up at the front. And whenever I saw that the Australians were racing, I knew that the first half was going to be really tough and really challenging. Unfortunately, we see a withdrawal from the Sudanese swimmer. Hopeful he's okay. He looks okay. It'd be interesting to see why that might be, but hopefully we see him back in action next time.
Yeah. It's never an easy task to come out and race the very best in the world, but good that he gave it his best chance, and I'm sure he'll be looking to hopefully be competing in the World Cup Series next year. I did want to sort of talk about David Bethlehem and what he has done to the sport in a very short amount of time, but also, Alice, I just wanted to highlight back in 2022, the World Junior Open Water Swimming Championships, and just how much talent was on show at those champs. We look at the women's 5 kilometers for the 14, 15-year-olds, and the champion was none other than Claire Weinstein. We saw that replicated in the 7.5 kilometers with Katie Grimes, of course, taking gold. The women's 10 kilometers, Bettina Fabian, Candela Sanchez, Maria Denigan, Mira Sismak, Mafalda Rosa. I mean, that's just the women's. And then on the men's side, we had none other than David Bethlehem. I mean, he won by 4 minutes. So a truly special athlete to take that one out. But even if you look at the shorter distances, where we had Hanna Kovacs-Serez, who's continued to grow forward for Hungary, Paulo Delegado of Mexico, who has been on the stage, the world stage as well, and then even going back to some of the younger age groups of the men, it was wow, what a year for the World Junior Championships. And I wonder what we'll be thinking in a number of years' time for what that meant to the sport, but also, I guess, with your own experience at World Junior Championships, looking back on the generation that was produced through that time.
Yeah, certainly. So I won the 10K in 2016, and Krzysztof Zowski won it the same year. So I always remember thinking, like, wow, like the difference in our careers, like to see him go on to win an Olympic medal is just win Olympic gold, of course, Olympic silver in Tokyo as well. It really can be the breeding ground and opportunity for athletes to understand what they want to do in the sport, and to see those opportunities that senior racers get, and get in and get opportunities like this. Like Florian and Rozovsky would have raced World Cups at a much lower level in terms of their standard. They would have been finishing, maybe like 20th, 30th, maybe even further back than that. And it's all about building an experience. And you get to moments like this where you see Krzysztof Rozovsky,
How's
double
Florian
Olympic
doing
medalist.
backstroke again?
I know, right? Like, I just, I can't. And the shot of him before, he was just swimming through, and it looked like he was just by himself on the screen because the camera panned round. It just looks like he's swimming down. Like, he's got this beautiful stroke. I'm so envious of it, because there's very few swimmers that swim like that. Typically now, everyone's got their own signature style swim, and I think Florence is quite rare in. It's definitely an open water swimming, but even in men's distance at the moment, it's a much more 200, 400 kind of style stroke, and it's so cool to see the variety of strokes in open water swimming. And I think that's testament to the event, that it allows anybody who wants to get in and put in the hard work the opportunity to excel in it, regardless of body type or stroke type or height, anything like that. It's an opportunity for all.
Yeah, yeah. I also just want to highlight just how special Florian's stroke is. It's transcended open water swimming. In Australia recently, our Year 12 or senior students have just undergone their, I guess, final exams, and the sports, I forget the course, but essentially sports science course had a question where Florian was used as the example for fluid dynamics around how efficient his stroke is. So you are witnessing probably the greatest example of efficient swimming, and who else but Florian Wilbrock.
That's so cool. You know, when you've made it into like textbooks, like literally, or you've made it into exam papers because you're just that iconic, and you're stroke like fluid dynamics. That's really cool. And yeah, I really do. You've already mentioned it, but go check out that post of Florian. You could probably just type in Florian Welbach flume on Google and it would come up. It's just so stunning. You see the way the water moves past him. It's a great example of what our swimmers are going through when they swim. And you know, we see the packs. Just it's been quite relaxed at the moment. I wouldn't say much has changed. You know, we saw Florian do backstroke to let Rozovsky in front, and you know, we have seen these two work together before in the past in Tokyo, so be interesting to see if anything else like that develops.
And I have seen that as sort of a question around the open water swimming world is, what's the likelihood of athletes working together to sort of get that best possible performance? I think when you look at athletes like Christoph and Florian Walbrock, they've known each other pretty much their entire adult life, racing on the circuit, and we've sort of touched on just how close these athletes become. Likelihood is today there's no benefit to them to really work together. They're not competing against Marc-Antoine Olivier for the overall title. They'll want to beat each other as much as Marc-Antoine would want to win the race overall. I think ultimately, where we could see people working together is especially in the Italian ranks if Marcello Guidi or Dario Verani work together. But of course, Alice, we saw just how tumultuous that working relationship can be in Hong Kong.
Yes, definitely. It was in the highlight intro before where you saw one swimmer kind of like stop at the finish to let somebody else finish, and it was a little bit heated. I was personally a little bit confused what happened initially. It's a challenge, you know. You all want to be the best. You all want to be first on the podium, and there's only one spot for that because it's very unlikely you're going to draw in open water swimming. I don't think I've ever seen it. You know, you get 0.1, you can win by 0.2 or even less than that, but I've never seen a draw. So you want to be at the top and you want to do everything in your power to get there. And sometimes it gets a little bit heated. You might get lost in the moment and make a mistake. But ultimately, working together can be beneficial to getting you on the podium, but it might not secure you the win. You might end up handing it to somebody else as you've worked together. So it is a balancing act that swimmers do take the risk with.
And also, just to add to that, Alice, I guess the difficult part that swimming provides, which we've talked about prior, is the amount of time that you invest into getting a result like this. The non-weight-bearing nature of swimming means that essentially the more you train, the better you become. And ultimately, all that head noise that comes from training means that you become a absolutely ruthless competitor. I know many people around the world say that they are incredibly competitive, but I challenge them to compete against a marathon or open water swimmer in anything. They will take the challenge and take the bait at all costs.
No, it's so true, and I've personally spent my whole life trying to play down how competitive I am, and now as the older I've got, I've just been like, Alice, just accept it, like that's who you are. And I think it's much of the same for all of the other competitors in it, because you are putting in so much time, so much effort, and you do it for the love of it, yes, but you're doing it because you want to win. You want to try and be the best. You want to be competitive on these scenes. You want to improve and do whatever you can to be better. and then ultimately hopefully be the best. So it's a really challenging sport, and like this is grueling, long work. I'm sat here at home talking about these guys, and the women who swam for 2 hours, the guys will swim for maybe 150-ish. It's hard to predict the time at the moment, but really tough and long swimming. And like we were saying about the prize money, it's just great to have that kind of added incentive to all of the work that you put in training.
It's a great point. I'm sure that's will sort of answer many questions around the world as to why these athletes don't sort of work closer together. I think there is a world going forward where we could see that happen, especially as the prize money continues to be increased year on year. It's inevitable that a model similar to cycling may be adopted by some smart and entrepreneurial thinking athletes to protect the likes of Krzysztof Rosowski. If he can sit in that 4th, 5th position without having to do any work, that's a dream scenario for a swimmer like that. But yeah, it's easy to conspiracize around the future of open water swimming, and I guess that's not why we're here. We're here to watch the best in the world, and what we are seeing right now is a return to that for none other than Florian Wellbrock. And it honestly pains me to watch sometimes just how easy he makes it look out in front as he controls this race from Marc-Antoine Olivier sitting in second, with Krzysztof Rosowski coming down now. This is the end of the 3rd lap. In about 200 meters time, and Alice, they just make it look so comfortable.
Yeah, they really do. One of the tough things about open water swimming is not kind of getting to see like the meters per 100, like the seconds per 100. Just to give like context, I mean, they're probably sat at Will, you'll probably have a better guess than me, but I'm thinking like 68 pace per 100, so 108 pace per 100. Do you think that's a bit too quick or a bit too slow? What do you think?
Well, usually when David Bethlehem's sitting at the front of the race, it's around that 106 mark. So it's a bit tough to tell. That chop has picked up ever so slightly as we move further into this incredible day here in NEOM, but if they're not around that mark yet, they certainly will be in the next, say, 2 kilometers, and then expect it to drop even more so from there. And the way that Florian likes to race is essentially a 10-kilometer build. So if Florian was in control of the race for the whole way through, especially this far into the season, I'd say he'd start at that 108 pace for 2 kilometers, move to 106, 104, 102, and essentially that last 2 kilometers of the race is 102 or better, which is sensational considering the distance covered and the fact that they don't have turning walls at the end of each lap.
I realized turns were kind of a rest. Like as in you get a rest when you tumble turn, you get to stretch out your hip flexors for a second, you get to let them like relax. That was one of the main things that I found when I first started out in open water swimming, was a strain on your hip flexors and of course on your shoulders, but it really puts like a lot of strain for your body in terms of, your core's constantly engaged to make sure your stroke's in the right place. Your hip flexors are engaged too, because when you look up, that puts a strain on them too. It puts a lot of pressure on your body in those terms. Thankfully, no impact, just like kind of fatigue comes into it. So it's really important that our athletes are staying like fit and healthy, and that's why you see in those highlight shots at the start, loads of prep and exercise going into training before they even get in the water. So we typically spend about half an hour on land at least, warming up, getting our shoulders and our core engaged, ready for training, but also of course competition.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I guess sort of feeds into the narrative of why the athletes need to train so much, because it's not just about the time that you spend trying to get better in the pool, but also the time you spend to maintain the ability to be resilient to the challenges that come with swimming. Alice, you mentioned earlier an update around the sprint point totals. At this point, 87 points the difference between Marcelo Guidi and Marc-Antoine Olivier. Should Marc-Antoine Olivier be able to finish this race without a disqualification or withdrawal, he will be the sprint champion for 2024. And similar to what was achieved in 2023 by Krzysztof Rosowski, claiming both the sprint and overall title, he has that looming large should he be able to finish well ahead of the rest of the field. So plenty at stake here for Marc-Antoine Olivier, potentially up to a $63,500 payday lies ahead of the Frenchman. And he talked before the race about how important this was to him personally after what he deemed not a great performance at a home Olympics, but a $63,500 payday to cap off your November is pretty special, if you ask me.
Yeah, definitely. That's a nice little Christmas present for yourself at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, again, with Anna Marcella and Marc-Antoine, you can hear how competitive they are when they speak. Even just like a short little clip that we had from both of them speaking about the Olympics, referencing the fact that they clearly weren't very happy with it, but there's still disappointment in there. And these are why they're such good swimmers. These are why they're such good competitors, because they come back off the back of that. And, Anna Marcella taking home the lead title, coming in 7th position, and Marc-Antoine looking to do the same thing and hopefully go on to win the race in Marc-Antoine's case. It just shows the caliber of athlete that they're dealing with. They didn't go home and sulk about it or like anything like that. They might have done that, but they're back in the water now, competing to the highest level and showing the rest of the world that, yeah, that wasn't my best race, but I'm still here and I'm still competing.
We're rolling through now the halfway mark of today's race, and some big names in that top 13. We're still waiting to see Dario Varani roll through a very tightly packed feeding pontoon, and a big group. Oh, there it is. Dario Varani sitting 18th, 11 seconds off the leads, and some big names sort of sitting in front of him. Axel Raymond, a big mover in that lap, but it's going to be tough for Varani. We know he comes through so quickly in those late stages, but he's going to need a 150-point gap to get ahead of Marc-Antoine. Alice, 3 laps to go for the 2024 season. Do you think it's possible?
I think it's possible because of what we've seen him do. Like, he's a strong swimmer. He can get through. I just think Florian is the the catalyst, the change. Florian's the change here. We haven't seen him in the other races that have been since the Olympics. The fact that he's back in it now, I just when he decides to turn it on, if you're a bit too far back, and I think that's why we see Varani making a move forward now. He's going to be aware of this. I think by the end of this lap, he'll be much higher up and punching next to Marc-Antoine. But at the moment, I think the threat that Florian puts the race under and the dynamic he will cause is making everything very unknown for me.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because we saw in the women's race just that turn of speed that Moesha implemented on the back end of lap 5 really changed the way that we expected the race to play out. And I think if it does play out like that with the 2K straight sprint, Marc-Antoine is much better suited to that. If Marc-Antoine's able to avoid the chaos, then he won't bring Dario Varani into the race. Varani is a tactician at his core. It's the reason he won a world champion title over that 25 kilometers, and he has been so good over those longer distances because the chaos ensues the competitor that is Dario Varani. So Florian Wellbrock at the front is not a great sign for Varani. I say if we could see Krzysztof Rosowski sort of sitting in between Florian and the lead, then it's going to bring those Italians back into the race. But really, it's too hard to call from this point. And it's exciting because anything could happen here. I think Krzysztof's still sitting strongly, but Marc-Antoine just has been clinical through the opening stages.
Yeah, Marc-Antoine, he's just like, I think he's like king of consistency for me. We see Rosowski and Florian kind of like really come in at those like key moments and, you know, come home with those Olympic gold medals. But Marc-Antoine is just consistently always like top 5, like just always, and that shows with the ranking points at the moment. So it's challenging because maybe Marc-Antoine doesn't win the race, but he takes home the trophy because he finishes like top 4 and gets enough points to stay ahead of Ferrari. But also, there's just so many of the other Italians back in there, like Guidi, for example, Sanzulo. It's really, really competitive.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see how it plays out. The same in the women's race, of course. It's not just that total point score that we're looking at. It's all the way through the top 10. And as we've discussed, Alice, what that means for the athletes, both individually, but also for their federations to have an athlete swimming in that top 10. But also, one thing that we're sort of seeing become more and more prevalent across the open water swimming scene is the commercialization of these athletes. And to be saying yourself as one of the top 10 athletes in the world really carries a lot of merit, and I don't think we can discredit that achievement. So it'll be interesting to see who does move forward. I did want to shout out Kato Shimori, the young Japanese swimmer who is sitting in the top 10 currently. This year, he has dropped about 25 seconds over his short course 1500 meters. He swam a 14:43 during the World Aquatics World Cup stop in, I believe, China. So 14:43 is absolutely lightning at 18 years of age. And we have this young talent coming in to the sport and trying to really prove it, and I guess that's why Shimori is racing where he is today.
Yes, yeah, we saw him race at the World Juniors as well, and it's just a fantastic race, and this is what we've been kind of alluding to with Japan, you know, really giving their swimmers these opportunities to go and compete with everybody else. I think with open water swimming, you can do all of the training you want, but you can't really do it in isolation, as in you can't just turn up to the World Championships because your federation has entered you in there and expect to be really competitive without going around and racing, you know, like European Cups, for the example of Europe, or maybe perhaps an Asian equivalent, or within Australia, and then of course the World Cups, like we're seeing now in this case, give you that opportunity to really learn what open water swimming is about, what marathon swimming is about, and compete against the best of the world. And then when you get to the World Championships, you have that experience and that knowledge built up to execute your race strategy correctly.
Yeah, I guess it's going to be interesting to see how it continues to develop year on year, and what that means for, I guess, the blossoming of the next Olympic calendar, because anything could happen at this point. But for now, at the front, it is Florian Wellbrock still holding the lead to Marc-Antoine Olivier. And your initial proposition, Alice, in the foxing nature of Krzysztof Rysowski, saying that he wasn't quite ready for this opportunity, he's sitting pretty with over 5k swum, still in third position.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is what I really like about Rysowski, is he's just he'll get in and do the work, like regardless of how he's feeling. It's kind of one of those things where if the wheels fall off, hey, they fall off. At least I've got in and I've tried and I've committed. So I think he's fitter than he's making out in that interview. It's just like, how can we count out the Olympic champion at any point in this conversation? He's looking really strong. Oh, it's fantastic to see Tsusimori sat in fourth position as well. Like, again, another great example of, I've been given this fantastic opportunity, let me get in and soak up as much experience as possible. Imagine if he gets onto the podium as well. That'd be so exciting for him. So, and you know, we still see the same leaders that sat in the same position. It all seems very everyone's kind of agreed that this is the way the race is going to go, if that makes sense. You know, with the women's race, we saw that things changing, things very dynamic in that sense, but the men's race, it's just been very comfortable. It's almost like a training session at this point for the top three. They're just kind of letting it unfold, and then when the pace kicks on, that's when things will really heat up.
Yeah, and we talked earlier in the race, Alice, about sitting at the front of the field and the impacts that it has on your sort of stroke and how easy you are able to move through the water. And I guess Florian Wellbrock sort of bucks the trend to that, because the way that he swims such a long, strong stroke, if he's back in the field and it gets disrupted from those around him, it really does impact his race. And in fact, it's that way to the upper degree, because if he has athletes around him, you can see just how tense he gets. And ultimately, the way that you beat the way that you beat Florian Wellbrock is by providing physical presence against him. We saw in Fukuoka in 2022, no one was able to do that. 2023, no one was able to do that to him, and ultimately he was unstoppable through that competition. Whereas this year in Doha, there was a lot of physicality in the race because the conditions enabled it, and ultimately it cost him from even featuring in the medals. So I'd say Marc-Antoine Olivier is in a perfect position at the moment. He would be loving the fact that Florian Wellbrock is swimming his own race, because it enables him to sort of swim to his strength, where it's a fast, long race. Whereas the Italians that are moving through the field at the moment, they are the ones that are going to be wanting to get up alongside Florian Wellbrock and apply that physical pressure.
Yeah, you're so right. For the majority of athletes, anyone, I think the golden spot at the moment, besides being first, of course, is sat behind Florian. He's got this great stroke that you can just kind of follow. Doesn't look like he's annoying to swim behind, if that makes sense. There are some people where it's just like they're a bit zigzaggy, they don't know what they're doing. Florian looks like he's taking some great lines. Everyone's quite confident in letting him lead. For example, we haven't seen, like we saw in the women's race, the taking of different lines from athletes. Everyone's quite happy to be like, yeah, we trust Florian that he's going to do the right thing. We're not going to try and go off and challenge his decisions in the line. So Marc-Antoine is sat very nicely behind him. It's looking very comfortable from both of them. I say it looks, I really want to stress that it looks comfortable. I know it isn't. I really know it isn't. They're really putting in some hard effort, and it's always great to see them taking on the race in this way.
Well, it's a great point, Alice. When we, I guess, think of a stereotypical open water race, and we talk about that arrowhead where you have one swimmer at the front, 2, 3, 4, and you sort of go down the rows. We're often thinking it just gets wider and wider at a certain point, and I guess the where you can see the impact that Florian's having on the rest of the field is when it starts getting narrower towards the back, because that is where those athletes are starting to blow up. And we often don't capture that through broadcast, because obviously the race sits at the front of the race, but that is the impact that these this incredible swimmer that is Florian Wellbrock is having on the rest of the field. And just to that point, and you've sort of been really great at mentioning that these athletes that are swimming in this race are the best from their federation for the most part. They aren't your average Joe swimmer. These are the best of the best, and you just have an athlete that is so strong like Florian Wellbrock, who's able to sit at the front and just make them hurt for 2 hours. It's truly incredible, and I'm not envious of those swimmers, although I have been in that position before.
Yeah, completely. I completely agree. It's challenging, and you're so right, actually, about what the lead does to the rest of the pack. Like, I never really put two and two together, but of course that's how it works. Like, it does thin out again at the back of the pack. It goes in like I don't even know what's like a bulb. It's the shape of a bulb, I suppose. Like, it bunches up a bit in the middle, where you have a lot of the swimmers like just competing in that area around 10th to 20th place, and then after that it just trails off again, because people get dropped. It's tough. It's a fast pace. We didn't see it as much for the women. We're definitely seeing it for the men, I think. With Florian just taking this lead on, and already I feel like it's thinning out quite a lot, and you can see where the separations will start to happen naturally when there's some sat further forward who look more comfortable with the pace, and then those sat in the middle towards the back already look like it's a little bit like touch and go slightly.
Yeah. And we can see Krzysztof Rosowski now starting to fall back, so perhaps his earlier comments were correct. He's not quite in the form that we saw in Paris, which is to be expected. If you want to see the longevity of an athlete, you do need to take the time and opportunities to rest where possible. But I expect Christoph probably won't have enough left in the tank, as he's sitting probably, I think, about 8 deep at the moment. So it is an interesting way to watch the sport unfold. And I guess for those watching at home, and you're seeing these gaps open up between swimmers' feet, and essentially even a meter gap in the water feels absolutely huge. And to close that gap down, you're not swimming faster than the athlete in front of you. You actually have to swim faster than the leader. So it does take quite a lot of effort to shut gaps that do open up. And I guess that's why it is important to use the pack as a ladder, as we talked about early on in the race.
Yeah, certainly. You know, you need to use the resources which you have available. And sometimes you have loads of resources available because there's more people in front of you, and you're able to just kind of like take one person's feet, get onto their hip, get onto their shoulder, then get onto the next person's feet, and just keep like climbing up steadily. Sometimes you don't get those opportunities and you have to do the work literally all by yourself. We haven't seen that yet. It is coming though. You know, we've only got just over 2 laps to go. Again, I feel like with Florian, it was similar with Moesha. I feel like a similar brooding sense of when he turns on his pace, like truly. I could see it, so you can see Rosowski's green hat at the bottom. I can see that behind him, that being dropped. Like those swimmers behind him just getting dropped because it just turns on and it's challenging, it's fast, and you might not be able to keep up with it.
And I guess this is where, Florian's really in the box seat, but even more so, Marc-Antoine Olivier sitting in second position. That's why you sit forward, is to know when those opportunities are opening up. Because if you're sitting where potentially Dario Varani might be at the moment, if the split happens at 4th in the order of racing, you are making up a lot of time. And once again, reiterating, you're not just swimming faster than the person in front of you, you're actually having to swim faster than the leader. And often when those splits happen, especially if there's a group, that's when you see those athletes starting to work together to try and open the gap even further.
Certainly, and just to the point about Marc-Antoine, he's just been sat so comfortably, just enjoying Florian's draft. Doesn't look like he's been annoying him either. They're swimming so quickly. Like, look at the speed. It's just like gliding along, both of them. Both got like an excellent stroke. And like I've been saying, it's great to see the different ways in which you can swim open water.
Yeah, it certainly has never ever been a copy and paste model. I think since its inception at the Olympic Games and the sort of popularity around the 10 kilometers, it continues to evolve in weird and wacky ways. And I don't know if there would ever be someone that could even study the science behind the way that the sport's going to evolve. There's only one way to make sure that you're able to compete at this level, and that's essentially to train really, really hard for a long time, which is exactly what Florian and Marc are so incredible at.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Marc. Oh my gosh, how has his name escaped me? The coach in France. I'm sorry. Can you?
I struggle with that one as well.
Why is the same? Well, I'm so sorry. I don't know why his name. It will come back to me. It will come back to me. But I know Marc-Antoine is at a very, definitely was at a very challenging program. My friend Hector Pardo, British athlete, he came 6th or 7th in Paris. Trained there for a couple years as well, and some of the sessions and some of the stuff I heard they were doing was jaw-dropping. Like, honestly, really, really tough and challenging training. Some of the stuff you hear that Florian does under Burnt, very tough, very challenging. I don't want to start repeating stuff out just in case I haven't got it right, but also just to the respect of the athletes, if that's their training regime. Just know they are training very, very long and difficult sessions, really putting a lot of time, energy and soul into it, and it's why we get such fantastic competition and such heated competition sometimes as well.
Yeah, that is that's great insight, because obviously a lot of people would be wondering what's the difference. 10 kilometers, especially the way that Florian swims it, where he just likes to take a lot of the well, I guess X factor out of the race by swimming a long, hard 10 kilometers. Can often be misconstrued as, well, he's clearly just faster than everyone, but what it is essentially he swims it so much on his own terms that many other people aren't able to even impact the way that the race is swum. Because if you look through the field and you've got Dalu, Sanzullo, Guidi, Filadelli, all Italians in that top 10, 4 of them currently sitting there, they would all be wanting to swim alongside Florian just to try and impact the race. But to get forward into that position would ultimately see their day ended. So it's really technical to see how it plays out, and yeah, it's never an easy one size fits all.
No, definitely not, and that's such a good point actually. And I just saw Florian take such a long drink there. Like, normally you see swimmers grab it, take 2 gulps, panic a little bit and let go of it. He was there, he must have got like all of that in him, and it just shows his experience and his knowledge as a swimmer. Like, I've got time, I'm comfortable, I'm confident in my ability that I can sit here, I can take all of my feed, and then I can turn around and I can still lead. I don't think it was interesting. There was definitely an opportunity for Marc-Antoine anyway to take the lead. I understand why he hasn't. Like, he sat comfortably behind Florian, doesn't want anything to change, just kind of wants to keep racing like this until the end, I imagine, and then try and get past him at the opportunity he can on the last lap. So be interesting to see if anyone does try and challenge the status quo that's been set at the moment.
Yeah, I just saw, similar to Florian in the movements through that feeding station, I saw Dario Varani shoot through and move from 14th. I believe he's now about to push up into 7th position. So that was a big move for the Italian, and there's a lot of Italians racing within that top 10 at the moment. I'm not sure Marc-Antoine would have an idea of what's sort of sitting around him. I think that's Klausman of France sort of on the left-hand side of your screen in the blue French cap, but we'll get an update very soon. This is playing out interesting here, Alice. I'm not quite sure what the next 2 laps have in store for us. We haven't seen a performance from Florian like this all year. The last time I remember seeing one like this was way back in the last World Championships in Fukuoka. So I don't know if he's got the gas in the tank to hold the pace all the way through the finish. There's still a big leading group, which means it's fast, but it's not that fast, because when we start losing the back swimmers, say we see the Portuguese hat just holding on at the moment, that's when you know that the pace has dropped. And at the moment, it's definitely fast where swimmers aren't able to move forward as easily as they'd hope, but it's not fast enough where I can't see no one challenging Florian for the win.
Yes, I totally agree. I can't see where this is going. Because any of the Italians could come through and take this with the kind of strength endurance that they have in them, or Florian could just turn this on at some point and potentially just swim away. And then of course you got Marc-Antoine who can do the same. So I really can't predict this. It's really one of those where until it's like a clear, definite, this is happening, I'm not going to try and make any calls right now as being a bit of a coward in that sense. But I can't picture how this unfolds, and I think it's especially because both Setubal and Hong Kong recently unfolded in ways that neither of us really predicted. Especially Setubal with who was it? Was it Dario? It wasn't Varani, sorry. It was Guidi, thank you. Yeah, Guidi swimming off with having a 30-second lead that we weren't even able to spot. It just all of a sudden happened, and I don't know if something can happen like this with Florian in the field, but I think Florian being in there has just completely thrown out the dynamics of what I was expecting from the races post-Olympics, if that makes sense. Yeah,
it's definitely taken a bit of the chaos out of it. Everyone sort of knows where they should be, and I think like the way that the course is being swum at the moment, I can't see the way that people are going to be able to get away from the group, because essentially why Moesha was able to swim away in the women's field is when they were swimming on that back straight, they were swimming into the headwind, which notoriously the back straight is where a lot of athletes sort of relax a bit more. When you're swimming in that home straight and you've got the turning cans, but the finish arch and also the feeding platform, everyone's a lot more alert, and they're usually more accountable to the moves that are going to be made. Whereas on that back straight, where these athletes have got a tailwind, it's much easier to sight, much easier to pick up when people are splitting away, and less likely that the pack is actually going to split. And that, added by the fact that they have the professor in Florian Wellbrock out in front, it's going to be I reckon a sprint finish all the way through that last 600 meters. So it's exciting for those tuning in around the world. There's absolutely no certainty on who wins the race. There's absolutely no certainty on who wins the overall series title, and there's no certainty around who finishes in the top 10. The only thing that we know is someone will walk away a winner, and the Italians are charging here through the backstages. You see Dario Ferrani, they're just such a strong athlete, punching through that turn buoy. And wow, Alice, we are on for a cracking final 30 minutes of action here in NEOM. And then, of course, we get to crown all the champions. What a special moment for them.
Yes, yeah, it's always so exciting at the end when we get, the winners of this race, of course, but then the overall cup winners, first, second, going all the way down to 10th, all getting prize money, which is fantastic. And as you might have seen on the screen pop up, that even if Marc-Antoine doesn't finish the race, he's still the overall sprint winner. So he's walking away with $10,000 today, which is already fantastic. He won't know that right now. He's still got loads to compete for. He's still competing for number one in the overall sprint, in the overall ranking. Sorry. So a lot going on, but we see him, next to his countryman here, and an Italian behind it, but I'm not confident enough to say which. Yeah,
I think I saw on the back straight, the earlier straight, that there was a little bit of a battle between, I believe it was Guidi fighting with Marc-Antoine Olivier, and that's a really key moment in the race. We'll keep an eye on that going forward, because obviously the way that the race is playing out, if you're able to get onto the hip of Marc-Antoine Olivier, it's going to drag him back into the field. And at the moment, he's got a perfect position. He's protected on one side by his countryman, and out in front, he has Florian Wellbrock doing the work for him. So for everyone else in the field, it's in their best interest to get up at least onto the hip of Marc-Antoine Olivier and drag him back into the group, because that's when the race will start.
That's such a good point. Yeah, he has been allowed to just swim free for a long time now, and even his countryman coming next to him is a little bit. I'm a little bit nervous for him with that, because that's how these doors open up quite quickly. He's a very, very well seasoned swimmer, and he's well accustomed to that. But you can see it happening now. Actually, the angle's a bit difficult to tell, but the Italian swimmer does look like he's right on top of Marc-Antoine, and like you said, it was going to be making it challenging for him.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Of course, those great drone shots that we're getting sent across the world continue to paint that picture of just how intricate this sport is. And you can see the pace is starting to come in, and we've got our careful, our incredibly well-trained officials looking over the race. John West, a member of the technical official committee as well, and a great advocate for our sport, just keeping a careful eye over how the race is playing out, ensuring that everyone sort of acts within the best interest of the sport and the rules. And I'm sure he will have an idea of just how important this moment is, not only for Marc-Antoine, but for the sport as a whole.
Yeah, certainly. And we do really need to shout out all of the officials, all of the technical team. They give up a lot of time, a lot of effort. Yes, you get to travel to these amazing countries around the world. You get to witness the open water swim. You get to be part of the action. But it is a lot of time and effort and a lot of knowledge that goes into it. So the sport wouldn't exist without them. It wouldn't exist without their effort. So I know, speaking on behalf of the swimmers and World Aquatics as well, we're always very, very grateful for the amount of effort which goes in from all parts of the technical team.
And that goes across all levels as well, Alice, because we have technical officials all the way through to your local meet. So a big, big thank you to all of them, especially a lot of them being volunteers at the lower level. So an incredible effort to see swimming, you know, continue to be driven across the world. And I really hope that there's people that are watching today's broadcast that are inspired to get involved at your local swimming club and I guess join in as an official, because it is quite a rewarding career opportunity. Look at this though, Alice. I think that's Krzysztof Rosowski.
Yeah.
Starting to charge up. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I thought he was gone, but he's bringing through a field, and this is an opportunity where we could see the likes of Dario Varani jumping across and moving through with pace, but Rosowski looks incredible.
He does look good. It's interesting because he obviously got tired of being in the pack, right? Like he wants his own space. He wants to swim by himself. I think regardless of how this ends, he's just taking the race into his own hands and doing what he feels is right.
Miscounted laps. Thinks this is the last lap. Putting in the final
Oh gosh.
spurt.
No, honestly, like it is challenging. You know, they've been racing for an hour and a half. Concentration might snap. I've definitely been there when it's been, especially when you're counting as high as 6. I know it's not high, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot of time to concentrate on, and laps end up blurring into each other, especially when the race has been as kind of static as this, if that's the right word. It's been very like fixed. So it is quite easy. I'm not saying that that's definitely happened to him, but just on that point of, I mean, I've been there, and I would consider myself like fairly intelligent. Like it just happens sometimes.
Well, it's an interesting point for Krzysztof to jump across, because you can see he's putting a lot of effort into this. If he's able to time it right, he could really jump forward, because essentially the pack is going to have to squeeze across to him into that turn buoy, and if he gets the right line, he could jump forward like tens of positions. He was falling back quite rapidly, but this is a great showing of where you need to be adaptable to put in an effort, because he's not only dragging himself forward, but whoever that lucky swimmer is on his feet. You mentioned sitting behind Sharon, and this is essentially the same thing. You have the Olympic champion knowing when to strike, and this is tactics being displayed in open water swimming.
Completely. And I'll just say, I really like the judgment and guts from Rosowski here to just be like, yeah, I'm doing it by myself. Like, I don't need the ladder. Personally, I would have used the ladder, but there's a reason he's like Olympic champion, Olympic silver medalist. He's backing himself here to know he's got the strength and the effort to do it. It's really tough to do it by yourself, because like we've said, he has to swim faster than Florian to do that, and he doesn't get the benefit of anybody else's draft when you're swimming out there by yourself. He's folding in now. I think he's gonna take the draft that he can. But it's really a valiant effort, because to swim that fast for that long alone, with the pace that Florian is putting down, is tough.
It's very brave. Like you wouldn't have done that. I would have loved to sort of sit on his feet for that jump forward, but ultimately not successful. And I guess that's probably the difference between the Krzysztof we saw in Paris and the Krzysztof that we're seeing today, is on his best day, he's making that jump quite easily. And that's what's exciting, is that's not lost. Krzysztof will return to that next year. He's just timed his run well so that he can be competing, hopefully, in the LA Olympic Games as well. But it's hard to take away from what Florian's been able to lie down through the first 5.5 laps. He's coming down to turn through and will make his way down through the, timing arcs for the final time in about 600 meters. And, ultimately, if you look at an athlete like Florian, it's very hard to tell when he's swimming well and when he's not, because he's so consistent. It's hard to sense the fatigue level, but he would be starting to hurt now. He certainly, as well as Krzysztof, wouldn't be in the same form that he prepared for Paris in, but he is continuing to swim strongly and open those gaps when they arise.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like he's just constantly had like half a meter on everybody, like at every point, even when he was doing backstroke for a second. It doesn't feel like we're going into the last lap. I feel like there's another 2, but this is winding up, going into the last lap. I think it's just because he looks so calm and so composed. His stroke is always so so fluid, like no matter how fast he's swimming, as you were saying. So going to be an interesting, 20 minutes playing out. Again, I still just can't predict where this is going. And also, just to point this out really quickly, has Marc-Antoine lost his hat?
Yes, he has.
Okay.
He's on the outside of the course, swimming strongly still next to, I think that's Marcelo Guidi, but it's also hard to tell from this angle. So we'll see how it plays out. And I guess the interesting thing to note, Alice, is, as well as Florian races today, he could win the race by 4 minutes and it wouldn't impact the overall points tally. So the race is one, what's in the water, and then two, what the final positionings mean for the overall title. And I think what we'll see through this final lap is swimmers like Florian that have absolutely nothing to lose start to commit to that win, and we're going to see Marc-Antoine get very tactical, because essentially if he can stay within 3 positions of Dario Verani and 5 positions of Marcelo Guidi, he will walk away the champion. But as we almost saw happen in the women's race, if you start getting too cute with your positions, you can ultimately lose out.
Yeah, completely. I like that. Too cute, yeah. It's one of those things you don't want to get too comfortable with it. And I think both Anna Marcella and Marc-Antoine approach this in exactly the right way. You need to be aiming to win, like point blank. And then you have some wiggle room behind that. Marc-Antoine is sat in a beautiful position here, has been the whole race. Doesn't need to challenge Florian, enjoying his draft. I think he's probably hoping Florian just turns it on now, and I really feel like the pace has picked up. I don't know if I'm just imagining it, but I feel like Florian is, I don't know, what do you think? I feel like it's getting faster.
Yeah, I feel like there's just a chaos that's ensued in those minor positions. They know that, essentially from this point, unless you can apply physical pressure to Florian Wellbrock, he's going to win. There is no one in the world that is faster than Florian Wellbrock in this position currently. The only way that Christoph, even at his best, can beat Florian from this position is being not physical in terms of a fighting nature, but providing a physical presence to the way that he's swimming. And so essentially there's all this nervous energy starting to come out in the minor positions, because there's going to be a break. If it's first to second, the race is on. If it's second to third, then Marc-Antoine will walk away the champion, and that's in sort of inspiring the moves. And I think I saw Dario Verani moving up into that third, fourth position. If that's the case, we are on for a thrilling final 1600 meters, because there is going to be an army of Italians following Verani through, and all these races are playing out in unimaginable fashion. But we're getting this one consistent approach from Florian Wellbrock to just sit at the front, and that's why I like the nickname for him, the Professor.
I do really like that. Is that Did you coin that, or is that himself? Like, where's that came from?
I have called him that. I'm sure other people
have
have
that.
as well.
It's sticking. We're calling him that. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's always just so dominant and decisive. Oh, he's very set in the way that he does it, and he gets in, he executes it well, and he continues to do it time and time again. And sometimes it doesn't work out for him.
Wow, look at these Italians, Alice.
I know. There's always another one. There's always another Italian.
That is an army of Italians. 5 in the top 8. There's 2 French and a German. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a crazy last lap. And Dario Verani in third position next to Sasha Velli. Wow. 2024 has been huge, and it comes down to this. There's the gap.
Absolutely it does. Oh my God. Is that the overtake? I think they might be overtaking someone.
Oh,
sorry.
Right.
I think they're lapping. There's a swimmer being lapped. That we can see on the right that Florian's just coming around. But I wasn't sure if that had been like the break just happening there. But I think this has been really interesting, because it hasn't. I think like Florian is putting down the effort now, but the field is still there. It's still competitive. This really could go towards anybody at this point. Yeah,
I think the battle now becomes Dario Verani has the feet of Marc-Antoine Olivier. Those two are the most tenacious athletes when it comes through the final stretches of a race. Ask any male open water swimmer and they'll say the least likely pair that you want to be next to in a final straight of a race is Marc-Antoine Olivier and Dario Verani. Marc-Antoine Olivier he's just so light. He has a very high stroke rate, similar to Ginevra Taducci, and he just seems like you can never get rid of him. And then Dario Verani is the same, but in an opposite sort of way, in the fact he's so strong and you can never kill him. So this is going to be an interesting way to see it play out. It's also worth noting that Verani, sitting next to Sachavelli, Frenchman, trains with Marc-Antoine Olivier a lot of the year and potentially has his best interests at heart for that position. He'll also be wanting to push up into the medals. He's yet to medal at a World Cup. So Verani and Antoine Olivier, this is salivating racing with, of course, as we've been saying, the professor out in front.
Yeah, definitely. You know, with the women's race at this point, we were very confident Marisha was going to take it. She had that very comfortable lead. I was literally going to do the maths on the point of this turn buoy that they're coming up to, where she had that gap. But we do not have that luxury of this. This really could go either way, and this unfolding in the next 10, 15 minutes as they go into the finish. There's just so many dynamics happening. There's races within races. I do think we see the gap happening now, though. And Marc-Antoine is just about holding on to Florian, but the gap between second and third is opening up. And as you were saying, kind of with Sachavelli and Verani, they're both quite big guys, I think. They're both strong, very muscular, tall. Those are the kind of moments where you end up kind of like stealing each other's water a little bit, and you could swim faster, but because you're kind of competing against each other, it becomes very challenging.
Yeah, that's where they do their best work. They're almost pest-like in the nicest and most endearing way possible. They are, not vermin, but they always manage to find their second win exactly when you don't want them to. What we're seeing here, though, Alice, the top 10 starting to separate, and what that means is essentially what we saw at the end of lap 5. This group that features the 2 Frenchmen, the 5 Italians, and Florian Wellbrock out in front representing Germany. These are highly, highly inspired athletes. They know that their season lies on this final lap. There is a lot of money on the line in this pack, and any movement around backwards, forwards, or otherwise is going to come with a season worth of work behind it. And you can see those little gaps starting to open up here between second and third, potentially. Marc-Antoine still sitting in comfortably, but the race is certainly still on, and I think Sachavelli might get squashed on this turn buoy.
Yeah, and this is where it's absolutely crucial through these races at the back end that you're getting yourself into the right positions, because it ends up being like 1 second on this turn buoy here. It can add up very quickly if you just end up in the inside line, or to be honest, that's where you want to be, but if it gets a bit too physical, you can end up getting pulled back and you end up dropping a row back, and all of a sudden you have a lot of work to do to get back to the position that you were in, to not even progress. So really, really, really tough swimming, and Florian's definitely put the pace on now. Marc-Antoine, I think he's enjoying that, and I really do feel like this gap is happening, or it looks like it is anyway.
Yeah, but if you remember back to Hong Kong, Alice, it was a similar position with Marcelo Guidi needing to jump across in front. Dario Verani sitting behind Marcelo Guidi, and he needed to jump across, and he ultimately did in that final finish shoot in the most unexpected way possible. So I never count out Dario Verani, and that sort of consistent splash that you see on that left-hand side of the screen is due to his unwavering nature of racing. It's going to be a tall task to sort of shut that down, and more importantly, the 150-point gap required. Essentially, Dario Verani would need to win the race, and we would need to see Marc-Antoine Olivier finish in third. But yes, you're right, Alice, that gap continues to sort of stretch. He does. Yes, Dario Verani needs Veli off his hip.
It's like stroke by stroke it's happening, and as you can see here, there's a bit of snaking happening, and Varani's just lost the feet or lost the waves of Florian and Marc-Antoine for a second. And those seconds are crucial because you're not getting draft for maybe 1 or 2 seconds. It's not long, but all of a sudden that adds up quite quickly. And if that keeps happening, if that snake keeps happening, keeps being allowed, it does open that door eventually. But yeah, you're right. He just can't shade Veli. Veli's sat on his hip now. I will say the hip is the most annoying place as a swimmer to have someone sit on. It just drains, it takes all of that energy. I will say for Marc-Antoine, he's obviously going to be putting down his hardest effort now. He needs to stay on Florian's feet. He cannot end up in no man's land. That's when it gets really challenging and you get caught up and you get eaten up into the back of the pack and end up fighting for 4th or 5th place or something crazy like that. So it's looking good for him now, but it's just it's very exciting.
Sasha Veli is doing God's work here for Marc-Antoine Olivier. He has completely shut out Dario Varani from jumping across. So I tell you what, Sasha Veli better be getting a nice little bonus check from Marc-Antoine Olivier.
Yeah, certainly. I have to agree with that. Whether it is intentional or not, I think Veli's just like trying to swim his race in that way. But you're so right. Like he's really allowing Marc-Antoine to get that space. But I'm concerned that Florian's fully swimming away from Marc-Antoine here, and Guidi has caught him up. Varani has caught him up.
Yeah, this is great scenes here to round out what has been. I mean, to be fair, it paints the picture of the way that this year has been swum. You look back to what the World Cup Series has provided for us and the entertainment that has ensued, but also a double year of World Championships and Olympics and sort of the unknown nature of what that meant. And Christoph ultimately winning both of those races, the 10 kilometers at least. And wow, it ends in this fashion. What a way to end. But, Florian Wellbrock, Marc-Antoine Olivier, Dario Varani, this is where you wanted the race to be. Sasha Veli now, in fact, sitting in 3rd position, I believe. So this is crazy racing.
Yes, this is really, really, really exciting. It's looking good for Marc-Antoine to take home the overall trophy. I think it's looking comfortable. We'll have to see if Varani ends up getting eaten up back into the pack. But Veli, let's talk about Sasha Veli for a second. Wow. Still a junior, competed at the World Juniors this year, won the 10K, won the relay, looking fantastic here, and he's gaining on Marc-Antoine and Florian Wellbrock. I think that's rare. That's rare for a swimmer to be able to do that.
Yeah, that is a monumental effort. To be race at just 19 years old.
It's looking. I think it's for Sasha's coming past Marc-Antoine.
This is good for Dario here. For Sasha to be charging forward means that Marc is coming back towards that pack, and he doesn't have that protection element that, whether or not it's meant or not, is going to play a factor on how the group sort of goes into that final sprint.
Yeah. Florian has really raced this. Like, he's got in and raced this exactly how he wanted to. I think he's came back and with intent to show the world, yeah, I'm still here. Like, this year might not have been my year in terms of Worlds, in terms of the Olympics, but there's still races to race for. I still want to get in, and I'm going to make you all work for it. If you want those championship points, you're going to have to try and take some off of me, because I'm looking to take 1st place.
What a confidence booster as well this late into the season, after ultimately what would be considered a bit of a disappointing year for Florian. He would have been hoping to take home world champion titles, Olympic titles, and ultimately to walk away without those and without a medal in Paris. This will mean a lot for how he approaches 2025.
Yeah, certainly. You know, it sets things up for him. It makes just that confidence boost, as you said, moving into the World Cups, which will be announced very soon, and then Singapore, and just setting up for LA. And like, it's the funny thing about Olympic sport is that we're constantly talking about the next cycle. Like even the cycle, like you're in it. We've just experienced Paris, and then already it's like, okay, well, LA, what's going on? Like, who are the names? Who do we want to be talking about? And athletes move like that as well. It's always like sights up and eyes on for the next competition and the next opportunity to prove yourself. And I've no doubt that we'll see Florian competing there at that level, or well, there will be of course competition from his countrymen in Germany, but he'll have every intention to be on that start line in LA, and he's doing exactly what he wants to right now in this race. That's a great point. Him and Ollie Clement make each other better every day. But how's this top six that's separated here, Alice? We have 1 German, 2 Frenchmen, and 3 Italians. And I think this move here by Marcelo Guidi is essentially going to hand Marc-Antoine Olivier the overall title. He's pulled up onto the hip of Dario Varani. That is going to be very hard for Varani to move forward onto Marc-Antoine. It could be that pivotal sort of move that does bring Marc-Antoine back to the field, but this is every time I think the race is going to play out a way, it does the opposite. It's constantly changing. Right? It was very static all of a sudden, and then bam, like it's just opened up, and you know, you see the competition amongst the Italians a little bit further back there. The 2 Frenchmen sat at the front. I mean, Sacha Velli, and he's really punching for Florian here. You know, he's looking really good coming into this finish. You know, he's managed to get on his feet. He's climbed up really well. Like, he's actually has been swimming faster than Florian at this point to get up to this position.
Do you think he can win?
Oh man, he looks good. He looks good. I don't know if like Florian will be aware of him, but Florian, if he doesn't have that turn of speed, because Sacha is like catching him. Like, slowly but surely, I believe he is catching him. And if Florian doesn't have that turn of speed to answer that question, then it could be a very tight finish. And the way Sacha swims as well, you know, he's strong, he's muscular. He's that kind of swimmer that Florian won't mesh well with going into the finish. So he could make things very difficult for Florian and end up getting his fingers on the touchpad first.
And it all comes down to this, Alice. The final straight for 2024. Anyone's race still from this point. I don't even count out Marc-Antoine Olivier, but Sacha Velli, this would be a monumental victory for the young 19-year-old if he's able to come over the top of Florian Wellbrock. Florian Wellbrock as well, if he wins, what that means for him, and then Marc-Antoine looming large as the series champion, and we get to see the best seats in the house for the action.
Yeah, so you know, I'm actually like, I've got like butterflies in my stomach. I'm really nervous for them because I just don't know where this is going to go. Like, I'm not counting out Florian, but it just like Sacha looks so strong at the moment, and Florian has led the whole race. There will be a lot of fatigue in him, and I think he's noticed now. He's really noticed now. He can kind of see a stroke changing a little bit. You know, he's much more aware. He's looking over his shoulder, making sure that Sacha isn't getting like too close to him. This camera angle is so deceptive though, because it looks like Marc-Antoine's kind of been overtaken, unless.
Well, that's.
Oh no,
Guidi.
sorry, I've picked up the wrong swimmer. Sorry, that's Guidi. Yeah, sorry. So it looks like they've actually comfortably broken away, these 3. So I think we can safely say that the winners, or the top 3, are in that position.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. The only telltale sign that you can see with Florian Wellbrock when he starts a sprint, he's not as clinical through that right arm entry, and he gets a bit of a rooster tail with his kick as he drives himself forward. So you know he is swimming fast, and I guess for those around the world, these athletes after swimming 10 kilometers would be swimming at about a 1 minute 101 per average for the final. couple 100 meters with a final kick. So, Alice, this is the best of the best going head to head.
Yeah, certainly. I just want to say the answer from Florian to Sasha was excellent. He noticed, he saw, and he reacted, and I'm confident that he's going to come into the finish first out. We're seeing Guidi come up onto the shoulder of Marc-Antoine as well here, so potentially Marc-Antoine falling back into fourth, but it'll still be enough to secure him that overall prize winner.
Yeah, it's been a battle from the start to the finish. What a way to wrap up. We said at the start just how important the NEOM Beach Games have been to this region, and it has once again delivered here in the Open Water World Cup Series. Florian Wellbrock has led almost from start to finish. There's been storylines galore, but he enters the the finish chute as head and shoulders above the field. What an incredible performance. Veli will hold second as he has distance to Marc-Antoine Olivier and Marcelo Guidi for third, but there is no doubting that today's performance belongs to the German, the one and only Florian Wellbrock, who has been out of form in 2024. He's come to NEOM and risen to the occasion. Coach Byrne should take a bow as we have the return of the professor. Florian Wellbrock, take a bow. You are swimming's very best, on top of the very best here in NEOM as the champion of 2024's final stage.
Excellent swimming, and going to be such a close finish for second and third. See who gets that. But just a shout out to the program with Byrne. The fact that they've taken home both the men's and the women's races is so impressive, and we see Marc-Antoine get that third place. So absolutely fantastic for him and Sasha Veli for France. And Sasha, I think I'm calling it now, was my male swim of the day. Junior, 19 years old, swimming up on Florian Wellbrock, making him have to take it to another gear is so impressive, so impressive. His future's very bright, and really excited to see what can come next from him.
So many storylines within that top 10 there as well, Alice. You see Marcelo Guidi all the way through, finishing just outside the medals in fourth. Dario Varani holds fifth, and ultimately we'll see him take second overall in the championship title. Rozovsky still managing to hold a top 10 in what is a world-class field, and I guess you go down and down the field to see just some sensational athletes, but ultimately all of them bow to Florian Wellbrock, and the best thing is, Alice, we get to hear his thoughts very, very soon. How's the colour in Marc-Antoine's back? You can tell he's worked hard.
Yeah, that's one thing we didn't touch on, actually. They dived in at 12 o'clock, so it's just about going 2 o'clock now, just before. Wait, sorry, am I getting my times right?
Just after, yeah.
So just after 2 o'clock, sorry, thank you. So the sun, hot. It's going to be at its highest peak. The UV is going to be high, and of course the effort that they're putting out as well. There'll be a lot of potential sunburn on them. It's always a challenge. You can lose a lot of energy from the sun being on your back and heating you up, especially in those black costumes. So we can see, that's why you can see the colour on Marc-Antoine's back, as well as the effort that he's put in.
Yeah, all of the above, and what a massive year it's been as well, as we've seen some of these athletes come through. Kaito Shimori, who did such a great job for 5 laps. It goes to show just the extreme level that these athletes prepare themselves for, and I guess what an incredible moment for Florian Wellbrock. The confidence that this will provide for him going into Singapore, a venue that suits his swimming. You'd have to be crazy not to back him as the money favourite for the next year's World Championships.
Yeah, totally. There are quite a few though. There's of course, Rozovsky, and we haven't even seen Palchinero Acarenza since the Olympics. So if they're back on the scene, it's going to be so it'll be hot. It'll be competitive. And it was just interesting to see Bernd there as well. That's the coach that we've been referencing throughout. Some really, really great racing from his swimmers today.
Some great racing from many athletes as well, and we get to hear their thoughts very shortly. Welbrock and Marc-Antoine Olivier, the proposed champion of not only the overall title but the sprint title as well, taking home so many awards from this season. What a special year it is for Marc-Antoine Olivier. Home Olympic Games where he didn't perform as exactly as he'd hoped, but if you were going to return form in any shape, this is the way to do it. So we will hear from our champion now, Florian Welbrock, speaking with our ground announcer. What a special moment for us all.
All right, we're here with our race winner, Florian. This is a new event. This is a new venue for the open water. You've been to most places around the world. How does this compare?
Yeah, it was so much fun. So first time here in NEOM in Saudi Arabia. I think we have so good conditions here today. So it's a beautiful venue. And yeah, the race was painful but fun.
It's not the first time we've seen you go out there and lead from the front. It took a couple of laps for you to set that up, and you got yourself away from everybody. That's a personal tactic for you. Is that you find something you just find that works for you each time?
Yes, for sure. So I love to compete in the front of the pack and use my speed from the pool. And yeah, with the flat water, maybe a little bit choppy at the end, it works so good. So I think it was a perfect tactic for today.
You're not done for the year either, though, are you? We're going to take away this sunshine and fly you back over to Europe, over to Hungary. You've still got the short course World Championships to come.
Yes, for sure. So it was my first competition of the season, and it was so important to race here, especially after my disappointing Olympics. And yeah, for sure, I'm really excited to race in short course in December.
So the aim is to finish on the highest of highs there in Budapest.
Yes, I'm a professional athlete, so it's my job to race on top level.
Super stuff. There's some great words for the youngsters. Thank you very much to Florian Welbrock. Thank you very much indeed. Right, Marc-Antoine Olivier, it looks like not only have you won the sprint title, but the overall title as well. We can't confirm that just yet. We have to let the race finish, but what a marvellous season.
Yeah, it's a very good season, but for me it's hard because I don't compete very well at the Olympic Games. So after Paris, I try to search a new target, and I see I have a 3 World Cup for finish the season. So I'm very happy to win the overall classman in sprint on the race. So I'm happy today.
When you entered into the water today, was your mindset on the overall or the sprint, or did you just think the further up the field I am, the better I'll do in both?
Yeah, I try to do my best so all over a classman. So no, it's very hard to do the sprint and the race. So no, I'm very happy to my season. Now I need to take a bit of rest and see you, I hope, in Singapore.
Sometimes it's good to be disappointed, though. You just talked about what happened in Paris and what you want to do next. So the focus now is not just each season. That next focus for you is the next Olympic Games. Is that right?
Yeah. My new target is Los Angeles, so I need to take my time or search a new target year by year, and we will see.
Thank you very much. You've been fantastic competitor this season. Everybody, we will see this man on the podium a little bit later on. Give it up for Marc-Antoine Olivier.
Wow, Alice, a lot to unpack there. They are great insights from these athletes, but it is hard to go past Florian Welbrock saying, I am a professional athlete. It is my job to compete at the highest level.
Yeah, I love that from him. I love his approach, his kind of just set way. And yeah, this is what I do. This is my job, and it's fantastic that this now can be a profession, a literal profession where you earn a living, you get opportunities from being an open water swimmer. It's fantastic to see, and it's great to see athletes recognizing that too.
Yeah. Rounding out the results once more, Florian Welbrock sits on top of the world. Sasha Velli sits second, and Marc-Antoine Olivier holds on just for third position. There's a star-studded top 10 moving through as well. Matthias Malechi continues to show why he's one to keep an eye on. Axel Raymond back in 18th. Kanto Shimori fell to 19th after sitting forward for the majority of the race. moving through as well. We start to see the back end of the field, a great battle all the way through to 28 as Takaki of Japan finishing in 1 hour 56:18, just showing how fast this race was swum from start to finish. Although Florian made it look pretty easy at the start, it certainly wouldn't feel that way back in 28th. So, of course, we will stay online as we get ready for both the medal presentation of the men's and the women's 10 kilometers. We still have a few athletes to finish off in the men's race to ratify the official results. And then we'll also conduct the presentation of our junior champion, sprint champion, and overall series champion for 2024. A very exciting time, so please do stay tuned. And Alice, there's still a lot to unpack there, because I did want to mention Marc-Antoine Olivier's year this year. He mentioned that he was obviously disappointed with the way he raced at Paris, but he was second in Doha in the 10 kilometers and the 5 kilometers. He finished 4th in Soma Bay. He won gold for Oranchi, 7th at the Olympics, as I said, 4th in Setable, 3rd in Hong Kong, and 3rd again here in NEOM. What an incredible year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is the thing about being an athlete. You often don't celebrate your wins as much as you should. You dwell on your losses a little bit too much. And not that Marc-Antoine's done that, but he should be very proud of his season. You know, him walking with a smile on his face is great to see, you know, walking away some great prize money today, overall World Cup winner. This is what I mean. I think he's really the king of consistency. He's constantly up there. If it's not first, it's second. If it's not second, it's third. He's just always there, ready to be competitive, will always be comfortably within that top 5. The Olympics was a bit of an outlier for him, but as he just had that conversation there, he's looking towards LA. He's very, very competent, seasoned athlete. I've no doubt that he'll be there, and he'll get that opportunity to right the wrongs of Paris as he feels they are wrongs.
It is unbelievable to look at a 7th place at an Olympic Games and
right?
Yeah, it is. Well, I'd love to have those issues, because those feel like pretty good issues to me. Marc-Antoine Olivier stands so tall, and I guess if you look back his career, you are so right by calling him Mr. Consistent. Bronze in Rio de Janeiro back in 2016 to still be the very best in the world over the 2024 season. And Marc-Antoine Olivier is not an old swimmer. He is 28 years of age. He still has many Olympic campaigns left in him, and if he can continue to put these performances up, I really feel sorry for the next generation of French swimmers. You have Sachavelli, Logan Fontaine, just to name some of the very best, but you're talking a similar standard to Germany and Italy, where you almost have to be the world champion to make the national team.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, actually. We've seen, I think typically we always saw with the women's race that it went a little bit older. Maybe the average age was maybe like 25, 27. And not that that's old, but it went a little bit older. The men's races, as you pointed out, like Marc-Antoine, he's been winning world medals, Olympic medals since he was 20. So I was always under the impression that the men's race was a bit of a younger generation race. But we're seeing now that shift as the younger generation has gotten older. They're still there competing at the very top. So it's ended up being like kind of a generational game where you have these amazing athletes like Marc-Antoine, like Krzysztof Rosowski, able to just stay up there and stay competing for as long as they want. And if we're looking towards LA, as you said, I do feel sorry for the younger ones. If you're a 20-year-old Frenchman at the moment, it's looking competitive, you know, with Sachavelli as well. So, and Axel Raymond, you know, that there's a whole list of French people that really could be vying for those Olympic spots.
And what it means as well for us, Alice, and for the viewers around the world, is the importance on World Cups continues to be an absolute must for these developing athletes, which continues to drive the standard of which the World Cups are raced at. And these fields will get deeper and deeper. And I think, we've seen consistency in races like Setable that has been a sort of stalwart on the World Cup calendar. And I think we'll see consistency in races going forward as well, which means we're going to see athletes get used to what the different courses mean to them. And we saw the challenges that today provided as well through that. The salinity of the water, the heat, the current, the wind, all of those things will continue to drive the standard of open water swimming and ultimately lead to a better viewing product for us around the world.
Yeah, completely. I feel like that's been the theme of this year is just what a great time. What a great time to, be able to commentate on the sport, to pick it up. It's always been a fantastic sport, but I really feel like the efforts from World Aquatics and also this fantastic production from NEOM Beach Games as well has led to a very exciting finale to the World Cup, and I'm really excited for the future of open water swimming, and absolutely fingers crossed that we'll be able to cover all of it again, hopefully.
Yeah, very much. Hopefully, as we still have an exciting action-packed day ahead tomorrow. The mixed 4x1.5 kilometer relay looms large. There is a number of federations that will be eyeing off that title, including Italy, who we haven't seen take home a relay gold medal yet this year. And for such a proud open water swimming nation, I'm sure that is on their radar. But you are up against it tomorrow: Germany, Brazil, Italy, France, Japan, Portugal. So there are a number of nations that could take that top position.
Yeah, definitely. Germany is looking really good for that. Leah Boy finishing in second place in that 10K. Jeanette Spivaks as well. I think she also had a really good race. So it'll be interesting to see someone challenge the Italians. Is what I'm thinking, because it really feels like the past couple races have been Italian dominance. So it'll be interesting to see that change.
And how good has this venue been? They really put out a great show here in NEOM. As you mentioned, the Beach Games has been a spectacle since the start of November to where we are now.
Yeah, there's been football, the super try as you mentioned, basketball 3-on-3. I saw some great highlights of it. It's been a fantastic competition, and it's so exciting that swimming, open water swimming, has been able to play a place in it. And I'm just so excited for the future of this, and a huge thank you to NEOM for hosting such a fantastic competition. I think, as you can see, the facilities have been amazing, and I really hope the athletes across all of the sports have enjoyed their time there.
Yeah, I'm sure they have, and I'm sure the open water athletes will have appreciated the opportunity to have this sport shown across the globe throughout the year, but especially the highlights that NEOM Beach Games has provided the eyeballs across the world. So not the first time that our sport has been shone in the light that it is currently, and hopefully will not be the last either. But of course, what a fantastic day it was here, watching both the men's and the women's 10 kilometers. And what a way the race played out in the men's 10 kilometers. We saw the introduction of the athletes was quite special, as Marc-Antoine Olivier with number 1 was an apt choice for that number. So here we have it, reviewing the day that was. Some of the athletes introduced, Alice spoke on just how special the moment is for them. As I said, number 1 worn by the king of today, Marc-Antoine Olivier. Christophe.
Yeah, it was a fantastic race from start to finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. And just the moment that you felt before the start of the race with the season final on the line just meant so much to these athletes. We saw early that Florian had the intention to set the pace, and he did that with Christophe.
Yes, definitely. I don't know if we'll get a shot of him doing backstroke at some point, but definitely set the pace up early. Rosowski was really stuck in there, stuck with him for a little bit. Fell away at the end, but still finishing in like a very respectable 8th position or 9th position, I believe. So really good from him. Great to see him, you know, even after taking a break, back in. The feeding station is always chaotic. We barely spoke about this today. Something hopefully we'll get to cover in the future, but there was so much else going on that it just didn't seem relevant at the time to talk about it. But some really, really great racing from the swimmers today, and I just especially want to shout out Sasha Belli, because that was a really special last lap from him.
So many strong athletes across the board that compete at such a great level here across the World Cup Series, and today was the ultimate finish line for them in a stage that we've never swum at in NEOM, and I guess the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia once again proving why they are such great event hosts. Ultimately, though, it was the pinnacle for none other than the Professor, Florian Walbrock, storming away to victory and kicking through that final finish arch to win with emphatic fashion. And what a way to cap out the year in untold stories and unimaginable storylines. Marc-Antoine owns the year and Florian Walbrock owns the day.
Certainly, it's been so fantastic to watch it all unfold. That race at the end, just no idea where it was going to go. And we're just seeing the women's results again confirmed. A fantastic win from Marisa Johnson, Leah Boy in second, and Tadici in third.
Yeah, it was a great day for them. And to win by a minute, that is monumental by Moesha. You can see just how strong that field was. You look even through the top 20, Maria de Valdez, second at this year's World Championships back in 20th.
Oh, wow, yeah. Just shows how challenging going from race to race can be, and that sometimes it might not be your day, but you reset, you reevaluate, and I'm sure we'll see her back in racing very shortly. Very soon anyway, in the next year.
Undoubtedly, that is the true tenacity of open water swimmers. They aren't built lightly. They continue to fight throughout their career. Ultimately, though, we were here for the final time in the 2024 World Aquatics Open Water World Cup Series. This was the 5th and final stop. We were anywhere from Egypt, Italy, then to Portugal, Hong Kong, China, and now here in NEOM, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to crown our overall winner. And it was Ana Marcela Cunha, in just such a special moment for Ana Marcela Cunha. Leah Boy rounding out in second, Genevieve Taducci once again on the podium. But for you, Alice, I mean, Ana Marcela Cunha has just been so good throughout your entire swimming career.
Oh, completely, yeah. As I've been saying, it's so fitting that she'll be the first name on that trophy, that new trophy that they've put in for the World Cup winner. It's right. It just feels right. It's poetic to me. So huge congratulations to her. Also, just want to shout out Lisa Poe from Monaco, getting into 10th position there, coming away with some prize money. Also, fantastic efforts she put into the sprint race as well. So great to see her in the top 10 too.
Moving now to the men's results, as we've discussed. Florian Walbrock on top, 1 hour, 50 minutes, 17 seconds. What an electric time. Negative splitting that 10 kilometers in what was a quick opening round as well. Sasha Belli in second, Marc-Antoine in third. We move through the top 20. Kaito Shimori, as we've discussed, in 19th, with Axel Raymond, just showing you the class of this field.
Yeah, certainly. And great to see Logan Van Hoos from Belgium in the 11th place there. I haven't seen his name before, so I'm sure that's a really big swim for him. And it's always great to see like different names, new nations popping up, and I'm sure that's a name we'll hopefully be seeing in the future again.
Yeah, moving through the top 30. Great to see so many federations represented. Namibia back in 30th, 2:04.28. By any standards, that's a fast 10 kilometers. So it's a great opportunity to race here on the world stage. And of course, we will be crowning our champion for 2024 for both the overall sprint and junior title. We will be getting those results imminently. But Alice, unofficially, official, of course, Marc-Antoine Olivier. It's hard to see him being beaten.
Certainly. I'm curious to see where it's ended up with the other Italian swimmers and where they're all sat mixed in with each other as well.
I'm very excited to see, obviously, Marcelo Guidi and Dario Varani, and just how important that touch was back in Hong Kong, China.
Yes, definitely. You saw Guidi kind of give it up to Varane in those last few moments where I think he recognised that he'd probably played a little bit unfair, and I think that's what he was doing, just being like, okay, I don't want to risk getting DQ'd or the officials writing me off, so allowing Varane to get that touch, but has things like that crucial. That's like 150 points, I believe, or I think it's as many as that, so it's a lot to contend with, and it will end up coming down to a lot of money at the end of the day when we're talking about the difference between like third and fourth in terms of the thousands of US dollars which are up for grabs.
Yeah, 10,000 US dollars. And that's what we were talking about in the women's race. If you weren't able to tune into that, we highly recommend going back to watch and I guess understanding just how important those split decisions are in ultimately not only the success of your individual race, but the success of your overall season. Even though you are competing over a marathon distance, it can come down to a matter of split decisions.
Completely, and this is where reflection on the races is key. I'd love to know how each of the individual athletes dissect the race. Do they write it down? Do they make voice notes? Do they do video logs? How do you document what happened in the race? We would personally do like a little like Excel sheet, and you'd fill in and you kind of tell the story of what happened, like lap by lap. Where did it go right? Where did it go wrong? What do you need to improve on? And so you can reflect on it and learn from it, because that is what's key at the end of these. And as you've said before, you never lose in open water swimming. You can only learn, and then hopefully use that to grow and expand on for the next time.
And I'm sure we'll see the learnings of those athletes coming to fruition over the coming years. That's the benefit of these World Cup series and why we have seen such a European dominance over the term of the sport being in the Olympics is because the opportunity to race at a high level means so much more than those training opportunities at the end of the day. And I guess that's why it's so good to see so many federations backing the World Cup series, especially what we saw from Hong Kong, China, with the young Americans deciding to come and race, and not only race the individual races, but try their hand at the relay.
Yeah, definitely. It's really important that they get that experience, get that those opportunities to go and race against the best in the world. As a junior coming through myself, that was when I really learned like what it meant to be at the top in the sport and what it takes to punch into that top 10 or that top 5 or even higher. So we're just seeing the final few swimmers come in now. Really, really beautiful venue. Fortunate that we get to be here and be able to speak about this.
Yeah, we've been truly blessed this year. We've had some great racing venues, especially even the World Junior Championships where they competed in Alghero, Italy. That was a truly sensational venue. But how has NEOM just turned on a spectacular day? I watched the Super Try a couple of weeks ago, and the water did not look like this. It was much, much windier.
Okay, yeah, we've been very fortunate for the weather, and yeah, I think the athletes have enjoyed it as well. Some of them will be disappointed with how they swam, but that's learning lessons, as we were saying, and great to see the competitive spirit always coming out and always shining through all of their efforts.
That's a great point, Alice. And I guess also what we haven't really touched on today, but there has been a number of KSA athletes racing throughout this World Cup stop is just the inspiration that events like this provide to the aspiring athletes, and just how much it means. Especially you look back to some of the up and coming Portuguese athletes, and that's the legacy piece that Setable provides. And I'm sure today will inspire the next generation of Saudi Arabian athletes.
Yeah, I sincerely hope so. It is really important that competitions like this do get to travel the world. That's why it's not just held in one place. You know, you want diversity, you want variety, you want to be able to showcase the amazing open water venues that we have around the world, and highlight the fact that there are swimmers in those countries which can take part, which can compete. And yeah, you're totally right. We've seen it with Portugal. Hopefully, we'll maybe get a World Cup in Brazil or Japan, and again, we'll get to see that effort as well, because both Brazil and Japan are also putting out some incredible athletes, as we've spoken about.
And our final athlete of 2024 across the line here. What an incredible effort it was. And that rounds out our individual action for the 2024 World Aquatics Open Water World Cup Series here in NEOM, doubling, of course, as the NEOM Beach Games. What a special moment for this athlete, and what a special moment for us all to reflect on what has been a truly great year. We're, of course, minutes away from our presentations, where we will see the presentation of the men's and women's 10 kilometers, as well as our overall junior and sprint series leaders. And one more time, just a big shout out to all of our assistants in delivering today's event. Of course, to the NEOM Beach Games, World Aquatics, our incredible officials, volunteers, and of course, our incredible broadcast crew that has brought this action to you all around the world. Stay tuned for the presentations here, and we get to live in the moment for some very deserving athletes, and hear, of course, their national anthems. So just minutes away from our presentation, and of course thanked a lot of different participants throughout the competition as we see what we were competing for throughout the year, but also a big thank you to all of you tuning in around the world for enabling us to continue to broadcast our incredible sport. It would not be the way it is without our supporters around the world making sure that these athletes continue to be celebrated. So by all means, tell a friend to continue to support open water swimming. And Alice, our sport is one of the very special sports that not only can you participate as a fan, but you can participate as well as as an athlete. So whatever your age, whatever your ability, wherever you live, we do encourage you to give open water swimming a go. And I believe even if you're very far north or south, there's even a sport for ice swimming.
Yeah, totally. Just always be safe with it, of course, but it is a fantastic sport. Any age it is relevant to, of course, once you have that competency in swimming. But always fantastic to be able to speak about open water and to shout about it, and hopefully excite people in the way that we do. So I just wanted to ask you briefly, Will, what's your men's swimmer and women's swimmer of the day?
It's a great question, and I think I'm going to have to go pretty basic with the men's answer. It's, for me, unequivocally, the return of the professor in Florian Wellbrock. I haven't seen him swim like that in over 18 months. So the confidence boost that provides, and just the reminder of who he is, and especially as we move towards a very similar venue for next year's World Championships in Singapore. I am excited to watch Florian Wellbrock back in action and to see him deliver after, I'm sure, what would have been a tough time at the Paris Olympics was incredible. On the women's side, I'm going to go with Ginevra Taducci. I think that her tenacity and her ability to continue to deliver and just never quit is truly inspirational. And I hope a lot of athletes around the world, whether you're a swimmer or not, take a lot of inspiration from what Ginevra was able to do. She would have had absolutely no idea that she'd lost the sprint title after that third lap, and fought all the way through the fifth lap and ultimately took home that sprint title ahead of Lisa Powell. My heart does go out to Lisa, but Ginevra, unequivocally the best female performer for me today. What about yourself, Alice?
Yeah, so I'll do the men's first. Sachavelli, I think, just such a special race at the end there, kept managing to gain on Florian in the way that he did. And then, of course, Florian noticed and had an answer for him and was able to speed up again. But at such a young age, I really think he's a threat to the status quo that we see, which dominates the men's race with, Florian, Marc-Antoine, Christoph Rosowski, and then the Italians all mixed within there, kind of ebbing and flowing between them. And I think Sachavelli's putting himself in a position to really threaten the way that works. The women's, I think Moesha Johnson, the way she swam off and the way she went and just went with that race and saw that opportunity, saw that door open and just ran through it, I think was so special, so dominant, so impressive. We rarely see it with women. We're starting to see it more. It's becoming more of a norm with someone swimming off, and I think that's a scary time. It's an interesting time for women in that field, and it's going to be interesting to see how anybody starts to respond to it. But I do just want to give a special shout out to Jeanette Spivaks. She came fourth. I just closely missed out on third, actually, and I know that's probably hurting a little bit right now, but she's finished within that top 10 of the overall rankings, which is huge congratulations to her. I know it's been a little bit of a challenging year, I think, after just missing out on Olympic qualification, so a huge congratulations to her with what was a very tough race today.
So, well, yeah, there's great insights again, Alice, and tells a story of exactly what goes into a performance like this. As we look back at the results for the men's 10 kilometers, once again reaffirming our position, Florian Wellbrock on top with a 1:50.47. It was the French pair in second and third, moving through the top 20. Malice, as we mentioned, Straka just continues to be consistent as well for Czechia throughout 2024. Moving through as well to the top 30, Marcel Schouten, the partner of Caroline Juis, just a sensational performance across the field for our athletes, moving all the way to 33rd, 2 hours 18:52. That is hours faster than your average swimmer around the world. So truly some special athletes performing in a special venue, and I'm sure we'll get the overall points total very shortly. In fact, on cue, there it is. Marc-Antoine Olivier on top of the world. What a year it has been. So consistent throughout. Varani, Guidi, Filadelli, Zanzullo and Giovannoni in the top 10 for Italy. How incredible is that?
Yeah, I think Marc-Antoine just stopping the Italian dominance, to be honest. That's the way I see it. It's like he's a floodgate holding it back. As we've said, it's just that consistent, first, second, fourth across all of the World Cups. Just really, really consistent racing. Fantastic to see. And you're so right about Martin Straka. That great to see him from Czechia. And this is another great example of countries that don't typically get into, onto the medal podium, and as we say, have this opportunity to show their federation, hey, I came 7th overall. You should keep backing me because I'm putting down some amazing work and representing my country very well at a high level.
I really think that Martin has upped his game this year. He's moved from a swimmer that often fell off the back of that lead group all the way through to an athlete that is consistently sitting within the top 15 of a race, which ultimately means for most events he's within 15 to 20 seconds of the win. So not that far from obviously taking out some medals, and I'm sure that would mean the world to him to finish in 7th position, take home $8,000 as well, Alice. A truly monumental achievement for him.
Yeah, that's huge. That's such a nice amount of money for all of that effort that you put in as well. Huge congratulations to them, and as everybody else as well. And Florian on there as well in 10th place with his points as well. When he's
with the one result.
Yeah, with the one result. It just shows hey, you get in, you have a good race, who knows what can happen.
So we cut to the back of the presentations as we see our female champion for 2024, arguably the GOAT of open water swimming. Her and Sharon van Ruendale really sit at the very top of that. Anna Marcela Cunha talking to the great Ignacy Vendrell of World Aquatics, and what a pair that is.
Yeah, big shout out to Ignacy actually. He's always fantastic. He helps liaise a lot of the work that we do. He's great. He's been absolutely fantastic for open water swimming, but also for World Aquatics and the other sports that he works with too.
And I'm sure Ignacy will hate this, but I'll say it anyway because he's a very humble man. But Alice, I believe he was the one that came up with the 3,000 meter knockout idea.
We have Ignacy to thank. I didn't know that. I keep gassing up this event. I really hope we get to. I really hope we get to witness it soon properly on the senior stage. It was fantastic for the juniors. It's so creative, such a great way of viewing open water swimming. So Ignacy, I'm going to give him credit for this. I'm sorry for giving credit to somebody, taking someone else's credit away, but I think we need to put someone needs to get respect for this event. So it's going to Ignacy. Amazing insight.
Well, whoever it was, a very big thank you for the introduction. I believe it's been in the works for a while, but I know Ignacy is certainly being very passionate about it. But this thanks, of course, goes to all the World Aquatic staff that sort of ensure the administration of the sport is to the highest level. And I guess open water swimming is continuing to build year on year, and some of the introductions, including the sprint title, which we saw today, was just an incredible inclusion into the women's race.
Yeah, completely. Just there's so much to celebrate here, and I think that's what's so exciting. We've got the juniors we're talking about, we've got the women's sprint, the men's sprint overall, and then the actual winners of the race today as well. So it's always really exciting getting to celebrate our swimmers, and it being not just the same swimmers every time, but different people, different countries, different nations. Always great to see.
So once again, moments away from the victory ceremony, we'll start with the women's 10 kilometers. We've seen the results. Moesha Johnson owns the moment, taking victory by over a minute with the truly sensational final 2 kilometers. We'll wait for her and her compatriots to make their way to the stage and, of course, award bronze, silver, gold, and hear the national anthem of Australia. Some special athletes sitting in this holding zone, and just how important they have been to the development of open water swimming. I'm sure we'll see their legacy play out for many, many years.
Yeah, certainly. And, this is such a great shot of the Brazilian athletes here. You know, you've got two different generations of open water swimmers sat there. You know, one of them taking away the junior prize and then taking away the overall prize as well. It's just it's moments like that you'll remember for a while in both cases for both the junior athlete and the senior athlete. So yeah, some fantastic moments and memories being created here.
What a surreal moment there for Lisial Sobral of Brazil. You know, it's really pinched me. I'm sure she's become used to the star factor that it is Ana Marcela Cunha, but you're talking about the junior champion for 2024 and then the ultimate champion of our sport. It, I hope, isn't lost on the young Brazilian.
I'm sure it won't be. You know, she seems very happy, very relaxed. But you're so right about the aura that Ana Marcela has. You know, it isn't normal to be around a superstar like that all the time. You know, she'll have to do a lot of press conferences when she comes to things like this. There'll be a lot of media attention on her, and I feel like she always handles it with such grace and such class. And I think that's common across our sport, to be honest. Like, it feels very nice. It's a community feel. There's never any like bad energy or bad vibes there. That's how I felt as an athlete anyway. I was always really happy to be on the circuit racing. So I really hope the other athletes feel that way too. It has a nice energy to it.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I guess that's the benefit as well. You have these athletes that are based internationally and training with these incredible programs like Moesha Johnson currently on camera, and that sort of strengthens the bond even further between the community and the different federations. But I'm sure that will only continue to develop as we have these incredible training groups starting to sprout all over the world, and new training groups coming with them as the sport continues to develop, and coaches understand the opportunities for those athletes that for a long time were almost dealt as a too hard card. It's much easier, in my opinion at least, to work with a sprint group. There's less hours on the pool deck than there is with open water athletes. But the good thing, of course, with open water, Alice, is you get to come to destinations like this to race as opposed to the pool.
That's such a good point, actually. I do always feel like there's more of a desire from coaches to be a sprint coach. You know, it's more of that, like, it's a bit more attractive. It's a bit more like fame attached to it. You know, there's more hype behind it. But the effort that open water coaches and distance coaches have to put into their athletes, to writing sessions, to being on poolside for 4, 5, maybe sometimes 6 hours a day, a lot of time commitment given up. So just big shout out to the coaches and support staff, as we're kind of alluding to, because it really wouldn't happen without them.
No, that's such a great point. We've shouted out a couple of groups today: the coaches, the officials, of course, the fans and the swimmers. There are a lot of moving parts that make sure that our sport grows, and I guess the hope that we all have is that it continues to grow and continues to be a mainstay on the world level. I'm sure the Olympics wouldn't feel like the Olympics without open water swimming. So by all means, I really do stress tell a friend to watch how the sport is progressing, because it would be great to have them in at this level.
Yeah, you're totally right. You know, we need as many people behind the sport as possible. There's so many amazing efforts coming out from so many different people, so many different stakeholders across the sport to make this happen. And, you know, I think we're moments away from the medal ceremony, from the presentations. Got a lot of athletes to celebrate, which is always so good to see.
So a reminder once more, we'll have the presentation of today's race, where we will be presenting the gold, silver and bronze in both the men's and women's 10 kilometers. As well, we will be presenting the overall points winners for the men's and women's 2024 World Aquatics Open Water World Cup Series, all the way through to our sprint winner for the men's and women's race, and our junior champion for the men's and the women's race. A reminder as well, the prize money that sits across the series is included in this stop. So the winner in today's race, that's both Moesha Johnson and Florian Walbrock, will receive a purse of $3,500 US. Second takes home $3,000. Third will collect $2,500, and that prize money goes down to eighth, who take home $650. Just incentivizing these athletes to push all the way through to the finish. I remember in Australia, it was always a great achievement to move through to the top 20 at a World Cup stop. Now, top 8 is the goal, and ultimately getting on to the podium. So, just a reminder, we'll be moving to medals imminently. The 10 kilometers women will kick us off, then move through to the 10 kilometers men's, and then we'll move through our relevant rankings. Kicking us off with the rankings will, of course, be the junior winners. We'll move to the sprint winners, and then we will do the World Cup winners for this year. So many athletes that, although they might not look it right now, would be absolutely thrilled to be included in this athlete pen. And Alice, I guess what we've discussed throughout the competition today, but probably haven't highlighted since the racing is concluded, is there'd be so many athletes sitting outside of this pen that would just be hoping that next year they're included on the overall points.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And even to the athletes sat at home watching this, wanting to have been there, maybe not given that opportunity yet, keep going, keep working at it. The fun and exciting thing about open water swimming is that I really think everybody has a chance and opportunity. Regardless of what your pool time is, if you get in, if you work hard, and you learn and you're ready to experience the race and throw yourself into it, you really can excel in it. So, to those who are on site today, who it might not have worked out for you in this moment, keep going, keep trying. The door's already opening for you. Just keep pushing. And for those who might be sat at home wanting to be there, you can take these opportunities. You can get them, and when you get them, they're quite sensational, and you just can't quite believe what's happening. And it's all of the hard work and effort you've put into it is worth it.
Yeah, that's some great advice, and really do mean it. And Alice, when you jumped online today, you mentioned it's 1 degree in London currently, which I'm sure for some athletes that are based throughout Europe would be very cold. So keep trying through the winter, and we'll be seeing you here next summer.
Yes, certainly. Warmer times are coming.
So moving now to the presentation of the women's 10 kilometers and our incredible dignitaries that enable this event to take place. What a background that is to be presented in front of. In third place, of course, Alice Ginevra Tedeschi.
She's had such a great year. I really feel like she's continually she's also like a queen of consistency. I think she's continually came into her own and put down some amazing efforts this year, and another fantastic bronze medal. And Leah Boy, she's been the highlight of the post-Olympic races for me. Really just kept stepping up and putting down some great racing.
And ultimately, I believe there might be the new favourite in women's open water swimming, and that is Moesha Johnson, standing on top once again, back-to-back wins here to round out 2024.
Yeah, again, she's had an amazing year, coming through so well. And Hong Kong to here, just showing her calibre and class of racer. And then moving forward, I'm very excited to see her race at the World Short Course in a few weeks' time. Definitely a name to watch out for. I'm sure we'll see her in multiple finals, if not winning medals.
It's a true testament to the way the open water swimming has moved towards where Moesha Johnson will potentially be representing Australia on the podium at World Short Course Championships, weeks after a dominant finish to the Open Water Series, as we now stand for the national anthem of Australia. What a special moment for Moesha Johnson and these athletes here to round out the 2024 season for the World Aquatic Open Water Swimming World Cup here in NEOM. And Alice, I don't say this lightly, I grew up in a world where it wasn't expected for Australia to be playing their national anthem at a World Cup stop, and here we are, 2 stops in a row where the national anthem is played out 3 times.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to add Australia to one of those that we're just going to hear. You know, we hear Brazil, we hear the Netherlands, we hear Australia now, Italy, France. There's just these countries where, for open water swimming, you just hear those anthems, and I think Australia has to be one of those now, as you've said.
Yeah, it's been a transformation that I'm sure many federations will be looking at. The sort of growth of the sport that is so intrinsically entrenched into the culture, and I'm sure that there'll be many more to follow the likes of Moesha Johnson, as there are many of these champions that stand on the podium. We now move, of course, to the men's 10-kilometer victory ceremony, once again thanking our delegates that enable this event to take place. And in third position, arguably hard to go past the year that he's had in Marc-Antoine Olivier.
Yeah, certainly. You know, a king of consistency. I think he very much deserves that phrase, that term. He's been fantastic throughout the whole year, and to be on the podium with your countryman Sashavelli, who had a fantastic race. He's my men's race of the day. Just some expert racing, and such an exciting future for him.
It just looks like he belongs on that podium, as does this man. It's good to see him back. Florian Walbrock, clinical, the professor.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really great to see him back racing, back on the top of the podium, and taking out the race in the classic Florian style.
It's almost a bit of a cheat code to see Florian race in the way that he does. Just so strong. Almost zaps the fun from the race, but that's exactly where the fun starts. Florian Walbrock is a well-deserved winner, as is Marc-Antoine Olivier. And Alice, Florian Walbrock's the professor. What is Marc-Antoine Olivier?
Oh, I have to think about it. I don't know.
Question without notice.
Yeah.
Plenty of time to think about it and reminisce of the day that was, as we get ready to stand for the national anthem of Germany.
Please stand if you are able for the national anthem of Germany.
So great to see Florian Wellbrock back on top once again. What a setting that photo provides. This has been a truly sensational venue to host the 5th and final stop of the World Aquatics Open Water World Cup Series. And of course, with that, we have some presentations of our series winners. Starting us off will be none other than our junior champions, and it's a bright future for Brazil, Alice.
Yes, definitely. It's great to see them take home both the men's and the juniors, the girls and the boys junior race, junior title. It's great to see that that's an introduction from World Aquatics and that countries are giving their juniors those opportunities as well.
Truly an incredible opportunity for these youngsters as well. I'm sure that will lead to further support from their federations in years to come. And when you look at the sort of talent that has been produced out of a country like Brazil in open water swimming, it's hard to go past the opportunity that lies ahead for Sobral and Malici as our junior champions.
Yes, definitely. You know, the legacy which Ana Marcela has been able to set and create for Brazil can really pave the way for athletes like these to have those opportunities for their federation to be able to take them seriously, take them to World Cups, and now being able to have the opportunity to get that recognition that they deserve is great to see, and you can see how what it means to them. It's great to see them happy and excited for this opportunity.
And pretty unique opportunity for these athletes to sort of, as country teammates, to share the top of the podium at the end of the season. It's not often that they'll get this.
That's such a good point. It's such a rare opportunity, and especially as a junior, where you're not expecting to get in to win the race. You know, you're hoping for maybe a top 10, top 15 finish or something like that. So to have this moment for them, I think is really great, and should be an inspiration to other junior swimmers watching.
I'm sure it will be. Some of the champions we've seen across these, well, only introduced back in 2022, but it was Sashavelli taking out the men's title, so it certainly paves a bright future for the junior champions.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you look at the standard of swimmer who have came through those junior ranks, and you see Sashavelli now stood on the podium in second place. It's a great opportunity for them to look up and to think, let's keep going, let's keep pushing. We can start punching into the higher levels very shortly.
And here they are on top of the podium with our incredible technical officials taking home the junior title. 5,000 USD to each of them. It is Lizao Sobral and Matthias Malici.
It's also a great prize money as well for a junior. For an 18-year-old taking away that money. Your parents are often the ones paying for you, giving you these opportunities. Your federation might be giving you a bit of money now as well. So it's fantastic for them to get these opportunities to kind of be able to support themselves or even potentially give back in some way. It's great to see.
It's a great point. Matthias finishing third last year overall, so to move from third to first, his final year competing as a junior, taking it out. A bright future ahead for Malici, as well as our female champion in Sobral. Moving forward though, we go to our sprint title, and what a race it was for both of these, but especially our women's champion in Ginevra Taducci.
Yeah, certainly. It was kept competitive, especially for the women, right until the end. I think it was a bit more set for the men. I think it would have been very different if David Bethlehem had competed at the other ones this year, but we're seeing a fantastic $10,000 to each of them for their sprint efforts in keeping the race exciting throughout the competitions.
Ginevra Taducci, Marc-Antoine Olivier, and for Marc-Antoine Olivier, the double continues the fashion in which Krzysztof Rozowski introduced last year, the double across the sprint title and overall title. It's not an easy way to do it. It essentially means that you're sitting at the front of the race for 50 kilometers of racing a year. That is eye-watering statistic.
Yeah, when you say it like that, I mean, yeah, it's tough, and there's a lot of respect to the ones who really take on the sprint title, and also just a big shout out to Lisa Powell. She really put down an effort to stay competitive with it, but it's difficult and it's tough sometimes, and Taducci did do very well to claim it.
Here we have our top three for the overall series. In third place for our female competitors, it was Genevieve Taducci, and for the men, Marcelo Guidi. What a battle these two had across the series. Guidi with that incredible victory, of course, in Setable.
Yeah, certainly. You know, that the way he swung away in Setable was something really, really special. And again, great to see athletes have these moments with their countrymen to be able to celebrate, and it's a good payday. It's a good payday for these athletes, I think.
And here we have second place, one of your favorites, one of my favorites, Leah Boy in second for the women's overall title, and Dario Varani in second for the men's overall title. What a battle it was all the way to the finish, really coming down to the wire.
Yeah, this is where every place counts, every point something of a second where you manage to get over your fellow competitors can really count and add up to moments like this where, you know, you get to stand on the podium, receive a medal, and also $30,000 as well. So this is the point of consistency that we're kind of alluding to, that it really adds up across these World Cups to stay on it, and there's always something to compete for.
So true, and such a special moment for these athletes to sort of share that podium. But here is our top place prize winner, and this is the consistency. We speak of Marc-Antoine's consistency throughout the year, but the consistency across her career, 81 international medals, and it is Ana Marcela on top for 2024.
Yeah, she's just, as I've said the whole way, I think it's so fitting that she has won this. She's just so dominant, so competitive, really well liked amongst everyone. You can see what her attitude and her energy is. She's just so great for the sport.
Such a great point. The legacy of Ana Marcela Cunha will long live past her involvement in day-to-day competition, but Marc-Antoine Olivier deserves the title for the men and stands above next to that incredible trophy. Some well-deserved winners for our overall series.
Yeah, certainly. You know, 3 Italians stood up there, a German, a Frenchman, and a Brazilian. There's a bit of European dominance there. I think the change is coming, you know, as we can see with Australia. I think if we saw America get into this a little bit more and go to more of those World Cup legs, get their swimmers their experience, I think that could change too. But as always, you know, you see some of the European nations really taking this on and getting those opportunities to earn some good money.
Yeah, it certainly pays off in the end of the year. $50,000 US goes to Marc-Antoine Olivier. The prize purse continues to grow, but how's this moment for open water swimming, Alice? A special time here in NEOM.
Yeah, definitely. This looks like a lot of fun. And, you know, we still have the relay to come tomorrow. So the athletes won't be celebrating just yet. They've still got some racing to go through. But it looks like a fantastic... this is what I mean by the sense of community, just like the real enjoyment from the athletes. So really looking forward to the racing tomorrow and for more to come.
That is a great point, Alice. Be sure to tune in wherever you're watching across the world. This is only day one of 2 here in NEOM. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has truly put on a spectacle, and there's plenty more to come. Who will take out that overall relay title? We will see tomorrow. But for now, we soak in the moment that these athletes have provided for us throughout 2024 and just admire the dedication that requires to get to this level.
She on my job. Yeah, I'm running through these halls like Drano. I got that devilish flow, rock and roll, no halo. We party rock. Yeah, that's the crew that I'm repping on a rise to the top. No lead in our Zeppelin. Hey, party rock is in the house tonight. Woo! Everybody just have a good time. Yeah, and we gon' make you lose your mind. Everybody.
So there's that trophy that both of these athletes will live on in immortality. The first names written on there, Anna Marcela Cunha, Marc-Antoine Olivier, and you really couldn't ask for a better duo, Alice.
No, it's so true. It's so fitting, you know, the amount of work and effort and time that they've put into being open water swimmers at this level for so long, for so many years. You know, Anna Marcela in 2008 at that first race in Beijing at the Olympics, all the way through so many years in her regard, but then also to Marc-Antoine with that bronze medal in 2016. They're seasoned, they're established swimmers, and it's great to see them have their moment to really celebrate this. And I think this is what's so exciting about the way that open water swimming has gone. It's become more professionalized. It's giving the swimmers their credit where it's due.
And you can see how much it means to these athletes. But once again, thanks for joining us here on day one of the NEOM Beach Games here at the 2024 World Aquatics Open Water Swimming World Cup Series. My name is Will Roller, joined today by Alice Deering. We look forward to your company tomorrow as we get ready to crown the final champions for 2024 in the mixed 4x1500 meter relay.